We are live on YouTube at the moment. And we will be live on Shaw momentarily. We're waiting for Shaw.
Hey, thank you. I'd like to welcome everybody to our first meeting of July. I want to recognize and thank our broadcasting partners and the reporters who cover our meeting, report on it, and broadcast it. We appreciate what you do. I want to acknowledge with respect that we are in Robinson Huron Treaty Territory. The land on which we are gathered is the traditional territory of Anishinaabe, and known historically by them as Bawating. Bawating is the home of Guard River First Nation, Batchewana First Nation, the historic Sault Ste. Marie Métis Council, and I also want to recognize the great work that the Indigenous Friendship Center does in Bawating. Madam Clerk, we can begin the meeting.
I'm afraid, Mr. Mayor, that we don't have quorum.
We don't. Well, where did they all? They're here. Yeah, seriously, they're probably eating. So we
I just need one more.
yeah, we just need one more. Councilor Shoemaker's here, Councilor Gardy's here, and Councilor Hollingsworth is also here. No, there should be demerit points for this type of behavior. Okay, I hope whatever you two were talking about was engaging. So we can get going now, Madam Clerk.
I have a motion by Councillors Dufour and Bruni resolved that the minutes of regular council meeting of June 13, 2022 be approved.
All in favor? Motion is carried.
And a motion by Councillor Dufour and Bruni resolved that the agenda for July 11, 2022 City Council meeting and addendum number 1 as presented be approved.
All in favor? Motion's carried.
And we have a presentation from the Northern Ontario School of Medicine, and Dr. Sarita Verma is attending by Zoom.
Okay. Is that supposed to be available to us on the screens, Deputy Clerk?
I will share my screen. I did send the PowerPoint, but I think it's better if I share my screen, Your Honor.
Yeah, well, happy to. We need to sort it out on our end so that we could see your screen. But I think our IT is currently working on that. So welcome to council, Doctor. We appreciate you being here, and we look forward to receiving an update on NOSM. So if you just give us a few more seconds here, and then we'll let you get started. Okay, we can see you now and we can see your screen. So we're in your hands. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Merci. Hello, Ani, bonjour, bienvenue, helko. I am Dr. Sarita Verma. I'm the President, Vice Chancellor, Dean, CEO of NOSM University. Thank you very much for inviting me. I have about a 7-minute presentation. The slides are available to you, and they're certainly free for you to use them as you see fit. Trying to get this to proceed. So today what I'd like to do is first acknowledge that our university is on the wider campus of Northern Ontario and all the homelands of First Nations and Métis people. Specifically in the Sudbury campus, it's on the lands of Atikameksheng and Wanapitei First Nations. I'd like to give you a brief overview of what's happening with the university, since we're no longer the Northern Ontario School of Medicine, but we are now NOSM University. I'd like to speak a bit about the very important relationship with the city of Sault Ste. Marie, and then have a chance for some discussion. So a lot of information on this slide, but just to say that NOSM is actually just 20 years old. And in terms of how old we are now as a university, we're just 101 days old. So we're not that old. We're a baby institution. We've always had our own board of directors, and we achieved our own accreditation as a medical school. And most of what we've done has been on its own, but we relied on Laurentian University and Lakehead University to issue our degrees because we didn't have degree granting authority. And the big issue for us was actually during a pandemic, which was a pretty significant issue, but Laurentian University last February declared insolvency. The impact on NOSM was severe. We suddenly found $15 million of our endowments frozen. We were subject to a board of directors of which the president of Laurentian was the chair of our board and had an immediate conflict of interest. So we went into a governance crisis. And we lost about $3 million right then and there because they had been spent by Laurentian. For us as a small institution, this was severe, and severe enough for our main degree program, the Doctor of Medicine program, to be in jeopardy of losing its accreditation because half of our degree was insolvent. So the government, in its wisdom, decided to establish NOSM University as an independent, standalone degree granting institution. The bill was introduced last April, and about a year later, the bill was passed. We now have a transition board and a transition senate. We are searching for a new board of governors and a chancellor, and we are dealing with, as well, as of March this year, a significant expansion to the medical programs because there's a huge need. So we're really busy right now trying to figure out what it means to be a university, which is quite substantial. There are a lot of legal requirements for us. We want to continue our relationships, especially with Lakehead in Thunder Bay and Laurentian and Sudbury, but both of those relationships have significant problems. Lakehead actually continues to control $11 million of our endowments. These monies are segregated and supposed to be segregated for medical student tuition, which our students are quite poor. We need to make sure that our students who were registered at Lakehead and Laurentian now can be registered with NOSM University. This is a big deal. Otherwise, they don't get their degrees. And our faculty appointments, our research administration. Importantly, look, we're starting off already behind the 8 ball. And so we need to raise some money for our institution. We don't have the luxury of University of Toronto with a $250 million endowment. We have only our own to rely on, and we are in the context of a massive expansion during a pandemic. I want to reassure you that you may have heard when I came to Sault Ste. Marie about a year ago that our strategic plan is staying the same. And the number one issue to discuss with you is how we're going to deal with health human resource planning in a time where during COVID and a burnout of physicians and a high rate of wait lists, and of course, a huge need for not just family doctors, but specialists and emergency rooms are closing. Now, we've been really successful, and over 388 doctors have graduated, a lot of Indigenous, a lot of Francophone, but that doesn't end with the MD program. They have to go on and do residency, and they can go anywhere to do their residency, and NOSM University offers only 9 residency programs of the 150 or so that can be offered, but we still had over 700 residents complete their training, and more than half of these have stayed in Northern Ontario. And over 150 dietetic students and other students as well train at NOSM University. The truth is, this, you're a very, very wonderfully savvy city council. Physicians and healthcare practitioners build the economy. And our economic weight has been not only that over 250,000 patients have a NOSM educated doctor now in Northern Ontario. We've only graduated 14 classes of the MD and only 10 classes of the residents. So just realize we haven't been around for 300 years like Queen's University, and our impact is huge, but our economic impact is also huge. Now, I'm talking to you because, of course, you invited me, thank you, but also because Sault Ste. Marie is the third largest site for NOSM University. And as we grow, we would like to explore the possibilities of having a NOSM University stronger presence in Sault Ste. Marie. So we are working with the Group Health Center now, Sault Area Family Health Team, Algoma Public Health, Superior Sleep Center. We have many people, I won't name all their names, but you can see many people in Sault Ste. Marie, including what's not listed here is Janice Willett, who was our Associate Dean, have played a big role in the work that happens. Teaching happens in these areas that I already mentioned, but since the last, basically for the data we have for about 3 years, and you can double that for probably 6 years, is that Sault Ste. Marie has already welcomed over 300 learners in your environment. Every year you host 8 third-year medical students. You currently have 11 residents, 4 psychiatry, 2 family practice anesthesia, and 1 public health resident. And although it's an option, it's actually been selected once for pediatrics, but regularly you have a lot of learners. And let me pause here and say, we'd like this to grow. You have 140 of our faculty appointed in Sault Ste. Marie. There are currently 55 graduates practicing in Sault Ste. Marie, but we have a lot of work to do because based on our data, currently you still need 40 physicians right now. I think this is a low estimate. I've heard that obstetrics has been in trouble over the last few months, and so you may need more. Interestingly enough, you have a very strong academic mandate. And we've been partnering with Sault Area Hospital, Sault College, and Algoma Universities and others in the partnership on the Ontario Mental Health and Addictions Research and Training Institute proposal. It didn't go anywhere. I don't know if you know about the proposal, but what is clear is that all of those partners want us to have a presence in Sault Ste. Marie. And my problem is I can't have 4 or 5 partners. What NOSM University needs is a collaborative and coordinated effort to work with us, because right now I hear from every single one of those partners, especially from Ozma Bezina, and there's a desire to have NOSM University partner with all of them, and we'd prefer if there was one approach. We have great support from the community. You know, there's this annual hockey game. To date, it's raised over $400,000 for student bursaries. This is fantastic. And it's a great city council. You guys are so engaged. I really am happy to be part of it, but our work is not done. NOSM University is at the beginning. And what I really want to say is I don't have to read all of this. You can look at it, but the truth is healthcare in Northern Ontario is in a crisis. We don't have enough doctors, and we have severe healthcare problems, especially mental health and addictions and primary care. Right now, as I mentioned, Sault Ste. Marie needs 40 doctors. In all of Northern Ontario, we need about 325 doctors, 135 family physicians, and 166 Royal College specialists. And I'll pause there and let you know that NOSM was started by my predecessors to be a family medicine only institution. Now I'm growing NOSM University to include training Royal College specialties. And that involves at least a 2 to 3 year lead up to establish those specialties to meet the requirements of the Royal College and of course the College of Family Physicians. But we need to do this because we can have a lot of family doctors and we need psychiatrists, pediatricians, emergency medicine, anesthesia, and as I mentioned, obstetrics as well. So the good news is thank you to you and all the municipalities and Phenom and NOMA. You put pressure on the government and they gave us the lion's share of expansion. So we have 64 undergraduate students per year, 5 military students on average, but we're going to get 30 new MD positions. Now, the problem is most of you think, oh, well, that's it. No. MD, you must get a residency training as a family doctor or a specialist 2 years or 5 years, or in the case of cardiology, 8 years. So it doesn't mean anything if we put out MDs. It means that we need to add more residency positions. So we're getting 41 new residency positions, which will train for 5 years. Undergrad medicine takes 4 years. Training to be a family doctor takes 2 years. So this group coming in will at minimum be 6 years before they go into practice. And if they go into a specialty, it'll be 9 years before they go into practice. So this is the long game, but we're really good at this. NASM University is the best in the country at this. Highest rate of Northern students, Indigenous students, Francophone, and more than half of our residents stay in Northern Ontario. But your role is the other half. Our job is to train these people and educate them. Somewhere along the line, people keep calling me and saying, where's my doctor? I don't have a doctor. It's actually not my job to recruit and retain doctors. It's your job. And if they don't want to come and live and work in your community, if they don't want to work in your hospital, if you don't have opportunities for them to grow and live, they won't come there. It's a buyer's market, as you're going to hear from me. So although they bring economic growth, every doctor who invests $1 will generate $6 of revenue for your city. You must make it attractive for them to live and work there. You need a recruitment team, and you actually have one of the best recruitment teams in the country. You need to give them incentives to come there instead of to go to downtown Toronto. And doctors bring in jobs, pay taxes, and bring in other healthcare professionals. But primary care doctors in particular, family doctors, are burning out. So my key message to you is, we're going to grow. We need help in establishing our site, because the more likely there's this train in your site, the more likely they are to stay. You need to work with your colleagues to create a work environment in clinics and in hospitals. They need a collegial environment. If your doctors are fighting with each other, which happens in some communities, they won't stay. They need a hospital that welcomes them, especially family doctors. If family doctors being thrown out of the hospital, they won't stay. They need professional buildings with turnkey operations like offices and labs and x-ray places, where they can send their patients. We need nurses more than we need doctors, by the way. And doctors who come to your community need schools for their kids. They need, it doesn't housing, sorry, typo. It should say housing for their families, and of course, jobs for their partners who are following them. So in summary, we are in the business of now making doctors. We're also getting into the business of growing as a university with more degree programs. In the next 2 to 5 years, we're looking at more physician assistants, PSWs. We're going to explore midwifery and podiatry. We're going to explore all kinds of programs with nurse practitioners, but our primary job is still physician production. And as the first medical university in Canada and a first in Northern Ontario, we're joining international ranks, but we're going to make a difference. But as I said, we're half of the job, and the other half is up to you as the city. Our goal over the next 5 years will be to build a sustainable regional academic model. These dots represent the clusters of where we are. And so we would like to explore the conversation with you to discuss building a site, a presence, our third largest place in Sault Ste. Marie. Thank you very much. Can you see me now?
We can. We saw your presentation. We thank you for it. So council, do we have any questions or comments for our presenter? We're going to start with Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you. It's more just a comment, if I may, Your Worship. I just want to say thank you very much for your presentation and all your hard work and your team's hard work. I've been fortunate to have worked closely with you, and I will keep on being the voice, and just thank you for the information. Very valuable.
I know that you sit on the board of NASM, Councillor, so I appreciate the work that you're doing there. And I'm sure you'll keep on doing it. It was actually Councillor Hollingsworth's idea that we have Dr. Berman here today to speak to us. So
Your worship, if I may be so bold as to say that healthcare and the provision of healthcare services is rapidly going over the cliff. It's not even at the cliff, it's rapidly going over the cliff. If you haven't had the problem with closing emergency rooms in your community, you will. Physicians are burning out. And so I am going to many of our municipal partners and saying, you know, look, we're going to make the doctors, but what's our strategy? What's our government relations? What's our advocacy with this new Ford government to say, you've got to focus in on the North? We're in a lot of trouble.
Councillor Gardy?
Well, yeah, Dr. Verma, thanks for coming, and I appreciate Dr. Hollingsworth. I give her a promotion. Councillor Hollingsworth facilitating through the mayor that you're with us. You took the words off the tip of my tongue. I was going to use the word precipice, but I guess according to you, we're beyond that, Dr. Verma. I think it's important that people of your stature and in your position speak frankly, and that's what you did this evening. We have a lot of work to do, and some of the things that we've been discussing as a community over the course of the last several months have been creating opportunities opportunities for engagement for those that we're looking to retain, but also to attract. And I think, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it seems to me that those types of investments are vital to attracting any type of talent, but specifically doctors. Would you concur, like to elaborate on that at all through you, Mr. Mayor?
Did you
I'd be
understand
happy
that?
to.
Yeah, okay, go ahead. If you understand your question, happy to have you answer.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I'd be happy to. I think that, you know, again, because we don't have a lot of time and you have a busy calendar, I'm happy to spend time with, if you have a committee of council or a group who are dedicated to looking at health services and health service delivery in order to build the economy of the city of Sault Ste. Marie, I'd be happy to speak with you. How many orphaned patients are there in Sault Ste. Marie who do not have a family doctor? I would say it's probably substantial. I do happen to know that now obstetrics is about to lose the people who deliver babies, and they're going to be referring to Timmins, but Timmins can't take them. So you've got people who are having to go to Toronto if they have high-risk pregnancies. You have psychiatry, which is at a crisis in Sault Ste. Marie. I'm sorry, but mental health and addictions is a big problem in your city. And you have a shortage of psychiatrists. So what I'm saying is, look, we're going to train people. What we want is to create an environment in the city, and we'd like you to work with your partners, Sault Area Hospital, Sault College, Shikamuwak, and Algoma University. And we're happy to coordinate my preferences through the municipality and to do some fundraising to create a build. Let's build something and let's get going. I'm happy to work with you. Minister Romano at the time put a lot of pressure on me to open a campus. I can't just open campuses like that. We're talking $100 million for that. There's a better way and there's a smarter way, but it's not up to me to build a campus. It's actually up to you and your colleagues. And then we can work together on how we can bring the academic model to your site. Your site's got fantastic talent. That's what I was trying to point out. There are already dedicated teachers, dedicated doctors, dedicated fundraisers. We just need a plan. So I think what I'm saying is, look, let's do it.
Wait,
Thanks.
Councillor Dufour.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Ms. Verma, for your presentation. I just wanted to follow up on one thing you said there. What would be one of your models for a municipality taking a lead role in something like this, an area which is, certainly more provincial responsibility than municipal? Can you point me to an example that would help guide how some of those efforts might be made?
Absolutely. So what I've observed is that the city of Brampton very effectively coordinated with the Ministry of Colleges and Universities and the Ministry of Health, but directly with the Premier by launching a new medical school through what used to be Ryerson at Brampton. That was a highly political move because it's going to take them 5 years to establish a medical school there. They've also talked about opening a campus at at Scarborough, University of Toronto, Scarborough, sorry. York University is also in the lineup, as is Lakeridge Health in Oshawa. What I see is, again, I've been in this business for 40 years, but what I see is the opportunity for us to work together, not one partner going individually. And of course, Brampton won because it was a strong political move, right? So Scarborough, Brampton, and Oshawa are all interesting areas that you can see potential pre-election opportunities, right? I'm being vague for a purpose. I think the challenge is that in Northern Ontario, we need a consistent and collaborative approach, which is what I presented to Phenom, where Councillor Hollingsworth heard me present, which is I'd really like to see us say, look, all of that's great, but it does nothing for the North. So what are you going to do for the North? And our biggest problem, I'm not sure what your name is, sorry, but my biggest problem is that if we don't enhance the connectivity in the North, just based on regional healthcare patterns, where do people get referred and where do they go? If your father needs urgent healthcare, and maybe you haven't experienced a problem in the last few years yourself, but once you do, you'll realize how challenged healthcare is in Northern Ontario. And if you have to drive 4 or 5 hours to Toronto to see a specialist, that's wrong. So I point to the city of Brampton as being a great example of strong political effort.
Thanks for that, Ms. Verma. I certainly share your sentiments towards especially the status of mental health and addictions healthcare in our city. And it certainly wasn't planned this way, but it is ironic to me that at the end of our meeting here, we actually have a resolution addressing cutbacks to the only day treatment program that we have here currently in Sault Ste. Marie, and that's due to a lack of provincial resources. So any advice you can give or help you can give to this body to try to move that body to resource us to the problems that we have here is appreciated. It's very difficult to look both at something as great and grand as it would be to see your campus here in Sault Ste. Marie, but also to be looking at the very basics of day treatment already being cut. It's very much a 1 step forward, 2 steps back kind of situation. So I appreciate it.
I prefer the advocacy piece than the big ta-da-da over let's open a building. I'd rather spend the money on services than on bricks and mortar. My closing remarks, Your Worship, is that let's partner. And let's do some advocacy work with the government. We have an opportunity right now, but let's make sure that healthcare is delivered, because if you have a population that's homeless and sick and not working, they're costing your economy. And in the end, this is a great city, and this great city needs to survive and have financial sustainability.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. We appreciate your time today. We're going to move on because we've got a lot on our agenda and more delegations here waiting to present.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
So we'll move to 6.2, Madam Clerk, PUC Group of Companies Report to the Shareholder 2021.
Yes, we have Mr. Bonifero, the chair, and Mr. Brewer, the president and CEO of PUC, are going to make a presentation, and we'll do the resolutions.
Very good. Before you get going, gentlemen, I'm just going to take a moment. Mr. Bonifero has served on the PUC board. When I was elected 8 years ago, he was on distribution. And shortly after we got working, he moved from distribution to Inc. Services and still on distribution. He has served all of those boards for the last 8 years. Very admirably and very capably, and made a very substantial contribution to our community. This is the last meeting, council meeting report to the shareholder that Mr. Bonifero will be at, because he is no longer the chair of those boards. He served his full role and time in that position. And I just wanted Jim to do 2 things. The first thing I want to do is recognize the very substantial contribution you made to your community. I think we can all agree after we see today's presentation that the PUC of 2022 is not the PUC of 2014. And that is due certainly in part, Jim, to your work and your commitment. And I want to say thank you on behalf of the city for the significant time that you have contributed to our organizations and our utility, and to the passion that you showed and the care that you demonstrated. And it shows in the results. Really interestingly, at our last board meeting, Jim talked about his father and how this actually runs in his family, and how there's a significant family contribution to that. So Jim, I'm sure that you would have made your father very proud. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Council. Thank you. This is my last time in front of you as chair. I still have one more year left on the board. But I certainly want to recognize, as you said, Mr. Mayor, the changes in the organization since 2014. But that was definitely due to a strong board. We were able to build a well developed, diversified, and strong leadership in the board. The board came up with a strategic plan and developed very clear identity of the governance model of what the role of the board was, what the role of staff was. And I think it's important to recognize staff that they bought into it. Our strategic plan challenges them to have curiosity. And you're going to see when Rob presents our sustainability report tonight, that curiosity has come across in so many ways. So I know, Mr. Mayor, that this council meeting is being watched from coast to coast because I know our chair of the distribution board is in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and my nephew Cameron often listens in from West Kelowna, BC. And likewise, the PUC has operated now provincially. We're no longer a Sault Ste. Marie organization. We were Sault Ste. Marie and a little bit of Algoma. We are all over the province. Rob will point out some of our areas of focus in the province, but we literally operate in the entire province. I'd like to thank this shareholder group and council for the confidence in me and the board. There were some challenging times, as you know, Mr. Mayor, through this process, and we always had the support of council. I'd also like to recognize from when I started, there are councillors that sat on the board with me. So past councillors, Pat Mick and councillors Frank Fata sat on the board of the PUC organization over the course of time. Current councillors Marchie Burney and councillor Paul Christian sat, and councillor Matt Shoemaker sat on the board with me. And I certainly recognize the contributions that you all have made to the organization. I particularly, Councillor Christian, recognize the contribution you made in the transition from 2014. Councillor Christian was participant in our search for the current CEO. He was a very active member of the board. I think 100% attendance. I would be challenged to that, but I think 100% attendance. So certainly, Councillor Christian, thanks for you. And Mr. Mayor, what could I say? I mean, the mayor came on board. I believe the first mayor to sit on the PUC board, and committed to the organization, committed to attending meetings, being engaged, and challenged us, and we challenged him. And as I said at the board meeting, often the mayor and I see eye to eye, but sometimes we don't. And I think a recognition of the relationship that we have, and I want to thank you for that, is that when we didn't, it didn't necessarily become prevalent that was the case. I would be remiss in not mentioning past chair of the distribution board, Ella Jean Rector, a recipient of the Medal of Merit here. Ella Jean was the chair of distribution when I started on the board, and she shared that passion that said that we could be better. The organization has always been tremendous. PUC has been in this community for over 100 years. It's been a tremendous organization. We have staff there that are passionate. The mayor and I just recently went to the opening of the substation 16 and had the opportunity to engage with some frontline staff to tell us about the station, and it's incredible the passion that they have for what they do, and all of that goes through the whole organization. So I'd like to recognize Ella Jean for that. And finally, I think you'll see when Rob presents, I think I'm very proud of the position the organization's in. We're set for growth. We will continue to grow. It's a tremendous asset to you as a city and as the prime shareholder. And I think it's important that you hang on to this valuable asset and that we see it grow and continue to service this community in the way it does. So with that, I pass it over to our CEO, Mr. Brewer.
Thank you, Mr. Bonnefer. Welcome to council, Mr. Brewer.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for the opportunity to be here tonight for PUC's AGM. Should be a slide deck. Yeah, here we are. So it's a really exciting time for PUC. I think Jim gave you a little bit of a sort of heads up on some of the things that are happening, and I'm happy to walk you through a lot of those really exciting items for the utility and for the city. The highlights we share tonight are also in our 2021 sustainability report. And that report will be up on our website for any members of the public that would like to look at it right after this meeting. And of course, it was in the council's package. This year's format for our sustainability report also includes some video footage. And so it's a little bit more interactive as well. So, Mr. Mayor, I know you'd had a few nice things to say about Jim, but if you'll indulge me for a moment, maybe I'll say a few as well on behalf of PUC board and employees. Just wanted to take the opportunity to thank Jim. He's been involved for 8 years as chair of the board. He's been an integral player in laying the groundwork for what is a sustainable professional PUC that we know today. And as his term comes to an end, just wanted to thank him personally for his leadership, for his strategic vision, and for his dedication, not only to PUC, but really to the community. So thanks on behalf of the board and staff. So if you can move to slide 2. Thank you. Tonight, we wanted to provide you with an overview of how PUC is really growing with purpose. And that's both internal in the community, but also externally, as Jim mentioned, throughout the province. And how we're investing in the communities that we serve in a multitude of ways. In terms of, if you go to the next slide, in terms of growing with purpose, over the past number of years, PUC has really been focused on identifying and launching new opportunities that are rooted in innovation, that satisfy our customers and serve them the best way we can, and have a positive impact on our community. Next slide. This slide shows PUC's current corporate structure. And what is of note is the growth of PUC through multiple subsidiaries, some of which are wholly owned and some of which are partially owned. And they're all under PUC Inc. on the left. The idea behind this growth is to ensure that we have a sustainable PUC moving forward that can provide returns to the city of Sault Ste. Marie and maintain reliable water and electricity services for our customers at reasonable costs. That is really our goal with any of the new ventures that we take on. Since 2019, we've added several new businesses, including Northern Waterworks, which operates all throughout Northwestern Ontario, and in fact serves First Nations all across Ontario. 17 Trees, which operates pretty much throughout Northeastern Ontario, and we're a partner in that with 2 other utilities. In 2021, we added PUC Transmission, which we'll get into in a little bit, and Watertight Lining Solutions. Slide. Next slide, please. So with respect to Watertight Lining Solutions, it focuses really on helping municipalities fix what really is an expensive and common problem, and that's deteriorating water pipes. So WLS uses a spray-in-place pipe process, which uses a polymer to line water mains. And that process saves taxpayers millions of dollars. We do that for communities throughout Ontario. And in fact, this is the first year we've got an extensive number of communities, limiting construction delays to as little as 1 day. So our traditional sort of model of seeing streets dug up, and they're dug up for weeks, if not months, while we replace pipes, can now be done in a single day. And it reduces the carbon footprint by about 75% compared to a typical replacement of a water pipe. WLS is the only Ontario authorized applicator of Relining 320, which is the polymer that we use, and it really stands to grow significantly over the next few years. It leaves in its wake positive impacts on both the environment and on customers as it achieves significant savings. PUC Transmission is a newly formed Ontario transmission company that's owned by PUC Inc. The company was approved for a transmission license by the Ontario Energy Board in October of 2021, and it is in the process of constructing and investing $100 million in new transmission facilities to connect the Algoma Steel EAF. The new transmission facilities provide power to those arc furnaces, and those new dual furnaces are expected to reduce carbon emissions by approximately 70% from the steel mill, which positions Algoma for long-term growth in the expanding market for green steel. That project is currently undergoing an extensive environmental assessment and public consultation process, and construction of the facilities is anticipated to start by September of 2023, with completion anticipated by December of 2024. Next slide. PUC has been a community partner since 1917. It is something that we're all very proud of as a company. And in 2021, PUC invested in our community members in several different ways that I'll quickly touch on. Next slide. The first of its kind, PUC's Sault Smart Grid will transform the way PUC delivers electricity. Estimates show that it will result in average customer savings of about 2.7%. It improves reliability, and it contributes significantly to a direct reduction in greenhouse gas emissions to the tune of about 2,800 tons of carbon dioxide annually. The project officially received the green light in early 2021 from the OEB, and the shareholder formally approved the project shortly thereafter. Through the balance of 2021, we had engineers and the design team working to confirm the scope and to develop specifications for long lead time equipment. Purchase orders were issued, and we started to see delivery of some of those critical components now in the spring of 2022. With expectations, we'll see more demand for electric vehicle hookups, rooftop solar energy, and other new technology in the next decade. The PUC Smart Grid system will help the city modernize and leap forward in meeting those challenges and opportunities. PUC is excited about this project. It really brings customers an energy system that is much more efficient, much more reliable, it's resilient, and it's responsive. In addition to the Sault Smart Grid, PUC is investing in the community on a number of different fronts. In 2021, we put in place a plan for the gradual incorporation of electric vehicles to replace the current fleet of internal combustion engine vehicles. PUC is taking a phased-in approach for the transition, where we've, as we replace vehicles that are eligible, ICE vehicles, we're replacing them with electric vehicles. And to coincide with that transition, we're also installing 22 electric vehicle chargers this year at PUC facilities that will accommodate the newly transitioned vehicles. Through battery storage, the SEMA program will provide meaningful reductions in greenhouse gas emissions for organizations and businesses in Sault Ste. Marie. For example, SEMA will help the Sault Area Hospital save an estimated $3 million on its energy bill over the next 10 years. And that program will provide them with improved power reliability, improved quality, while reducing energy bills through the use of the battery storage system. This allows Sault Area Hospital to store electricity during off-peak hours and use it during peak times. And that's the busiest time of the day for the hospital. So in total, over 10 years, the hospital will save $3 million. And I think we can all agree that the hospital has better things to do with their money than spend it on energy. Supporting charities and organizations in the community. 2021, PUC donated to nearly 24 different charities and events in Sault Ste. Marie. Took a leadership role in supporting the Algoma Vaccination Support Council and its cause of promoting and supporting vaccine clinics. We created a new program that saw the company organize and pay for taxi rides for anyone who needed transportation to the vaccine appointments and didn't have a ride there. More than 100 families utilized that program. The company also supported fantastic volunteers who ran the numerous vaccine clinics in the region by supporting things like buying their t-shirts and supporting meals to keep them comfortable. The My PUC app was launched in 2021, partnered with Screaming Power to develop and market a mobile app that facilitates better two-way communication with our customers, something that they had been asking for, provides better and faster updates on outages, and it helps customers better manage their usage, which helps them save some money. Since its launch in July of 2021, thousands of PUC customers are now using the app. They're conserving energy and they're enjoying a better overall experience with PUC. And finally, by investing in aging infrastructure, PUC is investing directly into the sustainability of the communities we serve. So new infrastructure improves reliability, it reduces ongoing maintenance costs, it adds additional capacity to a growing community. And in 2021, we invested more in electric and water infrastructure than we ever have before. Substation 16, a new substation, was completed. The voltage conversion program, the Zone 2 booster pump station, and pipe relining were some highlights. In 2021, we were also recognized for some of the work we did in supporting and investing in the community. And these awards reflect the dedication that PUC employees have shown in supporting our customers and our community. PUC was recognized by Algoma Public Health as a public health community champion. And just recently, PUC was also recognized by the local Chamber of Commerce with the Community Investment Award. We're certainly very honored and proud to have won both awards that reflect so many of our company's core values. On this slide, you'll see our financial statements for 2021, a very healthy financial year, continuing that trend. So PUC Inc., which is our holding company, it's where a lot of our investments and business development flows through, did quite well. PUC Services had income just over $1 million. Last year was about 650,000, and the year before about 1.3 million. But you can see some of the significant capital expenditures even in services. The next slide. Go to PUC Distribution, you'll see earnings of about 2.4 million, capital expenditures of 9.2 million. So a very large CapEx year for us. And on the commission, annual surplus because of the public accounting standards. It's called the annual surplus instead of income, about 7.8 million, and capital expenditures north of 7 million. So really, really exciting year for PUC in 2021. Lots of investment in the infrastructure we have and good solid earnings. Next slide. So the highlight is really sustainable growth, partnering with people in the community and organizations in the community, increasing some returns from subsidiaries really assisted, and those subsidiaries operating throughout Ontario. Significant local investment in the infrastructure for water and electricity. And we had higher returns to the city last year than we have in the normal past. So it was a good year for all. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that presentation, Rob. So we'll take questions and comments. I recognize that we have some other delegations here that are waiting for their opportunity. So if we can not repeat each other, Council, that would be appreciated. Councilor Krushner, I'm going to start with you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have really one or two questions, but before I do, I think I too have to.
You're going to repeat me.
No,
Yeah.
no, it's no.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I just, it's a personal perspective. I mean, I do want to say my involvement in the PUC began because of the problems we had in the East End with brown water. And I remember when you were elected, you suggested that if it was an issue that I needed to get involved. And I'm glad I took your advice on that because my time on the PUC was a good one. It was rewarding, it was challenging, and it was interesting. And I remember when we started, you said that you wanted the PUC to be more of an asset to the community. And I think through Jim Bonifero's leadership, we were able to get the ball rolling. He saw the same vision. And I think things really took off when we hired Mr. Brewer. I mean, the PUC is not only an asset to the community, it's a leading edge distribution company and more now in Ontario. And I think it's recognized as that. So congratulations to both. And special thank you to Jim Bonifero. Rob, just a quick question about the water main relining. You know, you've mentioned some of the bigger projects, and I think this one tends to fly a little under the radar. Could you elaborate a little bit more on the water main relining, what the technology is? You know, what types of infrastructure specifically are we looking for? More importantly, how well do you think we can commercialize this and actually make money as we expand to other communities with this?
Okay, so water main relining, what the technology we use is called spray in place. So we open up two ends of the water main, usually about 100 meters apart. And we put a robot that goes through the water main that maps the water main for where all of the service lines are. Goes to the other end after having mapped all of them. And it then sprays a coating of polymer through that 100 meters of pipe. It may do that 1, 2, or 3 times, depending on how much structural integrity we're trying to add to the pipe. And then it goes back after that's cured, which usually takes a couple hours. And it knows where all those service lines were. And it then drills holes into those service lines to make sure that those service lines continue to have water feeding them. And the end result is that you get between 30 and 50 years of lifetime extended on a pipe. And we have a whole lot of infrastructure in all of Ontario, but particularly here, that is all coming of age around a similar time. So what it allows us to do is to take a portion of that certain pipes are eligible depending on how degraded they are. And we can defer that major CapEx 30, 50 years down the road and try to even out the capital investment required. And so it's a really good opportunity for us to be able to stabilize rates to our water customers so that we don't have to spike them in order to replace and instead trying to get in and rehabilitate. And because we have the license to this technology and we're the only ones in Ontario, there's a lot of appetite for other communities to do the same thing. And so our first step is to make sure that we had it well in hand here and make sure that we had the technology in place that we needed and that we had the people trained, and we've been doing that. And now we're just starting to roll it out across the province. But there's a lot of excitement.
Great. See, that to me is, that's real advancement, and that's something that we should be really proud of as a community. Can you, just as a follow-up, do you know offhand how many meters we're planning over the next year or two? Can you give us sort of a short-term and more longer-term rollout for the community itself regarding this technology?
Yeah, so we did just shy of 500 meters last year. We're going to do a little more than that this year. We're going to also be doing some for other communities this year. We have more planned next year. It's really based on the deterioration of the pipes. If it's too far deteriorated, right, then when you spray something, it doesn't hold, right? So it can have small holes, it can be thin, but it can't be pretty much gone. And so depending on our analysis, we'll use 3 different tools in our toolbox for water mains. The one is to open cut and replace it. So put a new pipe in. And if they're too far gone, that's the option. The other one we can do is what we've traditionally done for lining, which is insert a sock and then bond the sock to the existing pipe. We can do that in some heavily deteriorated pipe, or we can use spray in place. Since spray in place is the quickest and most cost effective and the least impactful to customers, where we can do that, we do that. And where we can't, we use one of the other 2 options. So we're going to see a growing program as we start to expand that rehabilitation.
Thank you. One final question. You were talking about electrifying your fleet.
Yeah.
And I know when we had a visioning session a few years ago, there was talk about rolling out charging stations throughout the city. Is that still a thought? Are there plans to actually work with the community proper to invest in charging stations throughout the community?
So we are working with commercial partners when they're trying to do it, because the more involved we are in the process, the smoother it goes, because there can be some significant demand required when you install a charging station, especially the level 3s. The other thing we're doing, and you'll see this announced next week, is we're launching a residential rental program to try to help people who do buy electric vehicles to get over the hurdle so that they can charge at home. And so, a $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 cost in addition to buying a car can be prohibitive. So if we can get in and help people to be able to get over that hurdle, then we can get more people to adopt electric vehicles, which is good for all of us, right? And so you'll see a residential program and a small commercial program being launched next week. But on the large scale ones, we try to get involved as early as we can.
Thank you. That's it for me, Mr. Mayor. Congratulations, gentlemen. We look forward to hearing more great news as we move forward.
Okay. Any other comments, Council? Go ahead, Councillor Hollingsworth.
Just quickly, through your worship, again, congratulations to you both and your entire team. You do give back a lot to the community. Can you just comment briefly on how you gave back during COVID? Yes, you mentioned both the vaccinations, but I believe you also gave some breaks on the PUC bills, recognizing that people weren't working. And I think that's significant. I think that's important for our community to know. And also, you're very good at the dividends.
Yeah, we had a program in place to assist our customers with payment plans. We waived interest. We had no disconnections going throughout extended COVID period there. We did everything we could to work with people where we could. And I think it was well received. We also took a different approach to our giving. So traditionally PUC has a donation budget, and we would give to some umbrella organizations that would then distribute. We took a more active role in actually getting directly involved with some of the charities that were really in need, and tried to do donations directly to them. And I think that's where we had some additional successes.
Definitely. And thank you for saying that, because again, that's a really positive message. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation, Rob, and to you and the executive team and the staff at the PUC. Just thank you on behalf of City Council as a shareholder and as the city at large. You're doing very good work. So I want to recognize all of the team at the PUC. And I'm sure it will continue. So thank you. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
So I will read the motion that appoints the mayor as proxy. It's a motion by councillors Dufour and Bruni. Resolved that City Council is now authorized to meet in open session as the sole shareholder of PUC Inc. and PUC Services Inc. Further be it resolved that City Council appoints Mayor Christian Provenzano as council's proxy to vote on the resolutions of the shareholder of PUC Inc. and PUC Services Inc.
All in favor? That carried. Everybody voted in favor.
Did Councillor Christian leave the?
Did he, I think he left before I called the vote, so just, he's absent.
In the resolution of the shareholder of PUC Inc. Be it resolved that the financial statements of PUC Inc. for the fiscal year ended on December 31, 2021, together with the report of the auditors thereon, as placed before the undersigned, are hereby approved. Be it resolved that the firm of KPMG LLP Chartered Accountants is hereby appointed auditor of the corporation until the close of the next annual meeting of the shareholder or until their successors are duly appointed at a remuneration to be fixed by the directors being hereby authorized to fix such remuneration. Be resolved that the following board members whose terms are up for reappointment be approved for a 3-year term: Andy McPhee, Elaine Pitcher, Bob Giroux, and further be it resolved that the following individual is recommended for appointment for a 3-year term: Scott Seabrook. Board members currently within their term limits are Jim Bonifario, Christian Provenzano, Neil Strom, and Isla Watson. And a similar resolution of the shareholder of PUC Services Inc. Be it resolved that the financial statements of PUC Services Inc. for the fiscal year ended on December 31, 2021, together with the report of the auditors thereon, as placed before the undersigned, are hereby approved. Be it resolved that the firm of KPMG LLP Chartered Accountants is hereby appointed auditor of the corporation until the close of the next annual meeting of the shareholder or until their successors are duly appointed at a remuneration to be fixed by the directors being hereby authorized to fix such remuneration. Be it resolved that the following board members whose terms are up for reappointment be approved for a 3-year term: Andy McPhee, Elaine Pitcher, Bob Giroux, and further be it resolved that the following individual is recommended for appointment for a 3-year term: Scott Seabrook. Board members currently within their term limits are Jim Bonifario, Christian Provenzano, Neil Strom, and Isla Watson. So the mayor will execute those on behalf as a proxy for the shareholder.
I will execute. I will endorse those in the affirmative for the shareholder, for the record.
And that will bring us back up to proclamations. Mr. Mayor, did you want to go to?
I want to skip. So for the folks that are here on 6.3 source water protection and 6.4 evolution, I'm just going to move you down the agenda a bit because we've got the fine folk from Pride Fest, and we also have another proclamation that I want to move up the list so we can address it. So let's go to 6.5 and we'll have the Pride Fest proclamation first. How are you doing?
Oh, Your Worship, I'm doing very well, thank you. Yeah, happy to be here again in person and in live to be able to launch off Pride Fest in a week or so. So again, thank you, Your Worship, Mayor Provenzano and council members. For anybody that doesn't know, and I'm sure that everybody knows, but I'm still going to repeat it here. Sault Pride is a community organization with a mission to bring people together from Sault Ste. Marie and Algoma District to celebrate two-spirit, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, intersex, asexual, plus community. We honor our history, educate the future, empowering people with diverse sexual orientations, gender identities, and gender expressions. The annual Sault Pride Fest has become a celebration of unity and diversity, inclusion, and a vibrant creativity in Sault Ste. Marie area. Pride Fest celebrates our diverse sexual and gender identities, histories, cultures, creativities, families, friends, and lives. Unity, love, and an ability to trust in the bonds of support shared with one another have always been the greatest strengths of the rainbow community. These relationships are what helped turn individual struggles into a global social movement for equality and social justice. And they remain as crucial for us today as they were decades ago. We know that without the help and support of community partners and allies such as yourselves here at City Hall, we wouldn't have had this done. So we owe many countless thanks to you, Mayor Provenzano, for supporting our efforts each year and making Pride Fest such a success right from the initial one 9 years ago. I remember that we had a thunderstorm and we had to postpone it. I also wish to recognize all city councilors, past and present, in serving to support the vision of the mayor and the city of Sault Ste. Marie in creating a more inclusive, diverse, and accepting community. And I just want to say it again, thank you.
Thank you very much, Susan, for your leadership. And thank you all for coming today. I'm happy that you're here in living color and lots of color. We will certainly look forward to Pride Fest. Really kind of a heartening meeting for me. Obviously very proud of a lot of the advancements and work at the PUC, but it'll always be a point of pride for me that I was the first mayor to raise the Pride flag. So,
Absolutely, yes.
so thank you for giving me the opportunity to do that. So I have a proclamation here for you. Whereas the city of Sault Ste. Marie takes pride in its extensive history, its vision of an inclusive future, and the resilience of its population. Whereas the 2SL LGBTQ plus community, the city of Sault Ste. Marie has maintained a vibrant presence over many decades, from private gatherings to public festivals. Whereas Sioux Pride has established itself as a force for constructive change in the cultural fabric of our city and continues to commit itself to the ongoing work of eliminating discrimination and violence based upon sexual orientation and gender identity. Whereas Sioux Pride has weathered the pandemic, is returning to a full in-person Pride Fest. Whereas Sioux Pride and the city of Sault Ste. Marie displayed the Progress Pride flag to honor all of the intersecting identities under the broad 2SL LGBTQIA plus umbrella. Now therefore, I, Christian Provenzano, as mayor of the city of Sault Ste. Marie, on behalf of the city of Sault Ste. City Council, do hereby proclaim July 17th to July 25th, 2022 as Pride Fest week in the city of Sault Ste. Marie. And I encourage all citizens of all orientations and identities to join together in this celebration. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Thank you. And if I could just have a few seconds here.
Yeah, go ahead.
I would be amiss in not mentioning the two people that actually penned that proclamation this year. Two of our dedicated committee and volunteer members for Pride Fest. I have one of them here beside me, Amanda Zook, and Cash Denver Giordano. They took countless times and took proclamations that we've had in the years past and pulled them apart and came up with that.
And we are doing a flag raising this weekend.
Yes,
So
we are.
that's here at City Hall on Sunday. What's the time?
12 noon, high noon. Yeah.
And where can people go if they want to check out all the different?
They
events?
can go to our webpage, www, as my mother would say, www.siouxpride.ca, or you can go to Facebook to Sioux Pride Community.
Okay, siouxpride.ca, Sioux Pride Community.
Yeah.
Okay. So I encourage people to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
And under agenda item 6.6, the 230th anniversary of the Black Loyalist Exodus.
Okay. I understood, is Jane Amala with us virtually? Just didn't, or was she going to be with us in person?
I thought she was going to be here in person.
Okay. Well, anyway, recognize Jane for her tremendous leadership, and maybe she is listening in. So whereas abject institutionalized racism led to the exodus of 1,196 self-liberated Black loyalists at the height of the transatlantic slave trade, one of the cruelest chapters in the history of humanity. Whereas the city of Sault Ste. Marie recognizes that people of African descent have been part of Canadian society since the early 1600s, that their enslavement occurred on this land for centuries, and that the Black loyalist departure is linked to the failure of institutional, political, and societal will to fulfill the promises that were made to communities that left for Sierra Leone. Whereas the city also recognizes the ongoing significance of the UN Decade of African Descent and the history of Black loyalists in Nova Scotia and throughout Canada. Securing housing and land was promised to these early settlers, and very few received what was owed. Despite petitions, the promised land and supplies were not provided. For many Black loyalists, shared Mi'kmaq knowledge was key to survival in the first winters. Now therefore, I, Christian Provenzano, as mayor of the city of Sault Ste. Marie, do hereby proclaim 2022 as the 230th anniversary of the year of Black loyal exodus. 15 ships to Sierra Leone, 1792 project. Madam Clerk, I think that brings us back up, and then we can go to 7 point, sorry, I apologize, 6.4.
6.3.
Source water protection.
And Marlene McKinnon, the Source Water Protection Program Manager with Conservation Authorities in attendance.
Welcome to council, Marlene. I appreciate your patience there and letting me kind of jump back up. And
Yep, thank you very much, Your Honor. Yeah. I have a PowerPoint presentation that
yeah, they're pulling it up
we
for
brought
you.
up. I wanted to thank your worship and the council for allowing me to do this presentation. It's been a while since it was presented to council, and we've had a lot of things go on. So in the background, and I know that you have all been able to read the presentation before. So we did some achievements. We did the Section 36 update that was ordered by the ministry, and we were able to have it approved in April of 2021. All of the documents are posted on our website under drinking water source protection. Some of the director's technical rules work is being noted in this presentation. Other changes to the documents will be referenced to the threat circumstances that are now included in the director's technical references rules, and any changes to the circumstances referenced in the documents. Also, any changes to the names of the ministries will be reflected in the new documents. One of our main sorry about that.
No problem. There's water right there beside you if you need some.
Yeah, I got it. So what happened in the sorry about that. What was changed the most in the director's technical rules was the changes to the application of the road salt and the requirement that we look at the impervious surface areas, and they changed it to where the circumstances were less than 1% to greater than 30%. Previously in the rules, the upper limit was actually 80%. So we've had to relook at the whole area to get that changed so that we could take a look at whether it was still within the area that we needed to look at. Preliminary work has created a 500 meter grid, whereas previously it was a 1 kilometer grid. This is created for analysis, and within the WAPA A, the buildings were included in the impervious surface. So any of the vulnerable areas, mainly in the Gooley and the Steelton Well area, have a score of 8 to 10, whereas the Shannon and the Lorna only have the score of 10. In the document, in the new director's technical rules that came into effect in 2021, we had to take another look at the handling and storage of road salt. This has been changed significantly because before it was different. Now they're targeting a lesser amount. So, and the circumstance is different. So whether it's exposed or not, and the volume of salt that's being stored. So in the presentation, I give you some examples of the smallest circumstance is examples of the yellow salt bins outside of retail locations. These locations would have to occur within the WAPA A or the WAPA B if the score is 8. In the situation where it's potentially exposed to precipitation or runoff of less than 50 kilograms to more than 100 kilograms, an example would be the skids of bagged salt, road salt that's being held outside of the retail outlets. And then the largest one is where it's not exposed would be the salt domes. In the director's technical rules, they changed the storage of snow from a volume to an area. In our policies, we did not specify a volume or an area, so we're not going to have to change any of that. We're going to look at, we have one risk management plan that has to be reviewed, but I don't think it will reference, it references the policy. So therefore, we're not going to be changing any of that. Another change was the intake protection zone at Growcap. I put the description of what they're classifying, how they're classifying the intake there. When I did the preliminary review of the changes to the IPZ in the director's technical rules, it does not change the vulnerability score of our Growcap IPZs, which is good news. In the climate consideration, currently there's a section 7 in the explanatory document, and there's references in the assessment report and in the source protection plan, but it's under the assumption that there's free data that's readily available to populate the climate change risk assessment tool. And training for the initial tool was provided in January of 2020, and that was with the development staff. Andrew Hallett from the PUC accompanied me to Sudbury, and we took part in that training. Going forward, we have the Source Protection Committee is going to be making decisions on methodology to do any changes, and that's including the methodology to do the impervious surface percentages. The risk assessment tool, it's going to be going through, but I will need assistance from the municipal staff. Our Source Protection Chair appointment will expire in August of 2022. And we expect new or reappointment in the fall. The Source Protection member appointments will expire in December 31 of 2024. Any of the annual progress reports that I've submitted to the MEC have been posted on the SSMRCA website and can be found at the URL on the screen. The Ministry of Environment in developing work to answer questions for any of the people that were asking about source protection that is outside of a conservation area. developed the best practices document. I've added the link to that in the slide deck. And this is to help protect water sources and drinking water systems that are not included in a source protection plan or aren't regulated by the Clean Water Act. Local examples would be Prince Township or anybody that's outside of the urban service line. And that includes the Sault North Planning Board as well. So if you have any questions, our source protection meetings are open to the public. We have 2 more this summer, and they are going to be virtual. So you would contact me for a Zoom link. And we're hoping to meet in person in the fall.
Just a quick comment through your worship. Marlene, I just want to say on behalf of council, I just wanted to say thank you for coming to this evening to give us such a overview, and to the rest of the team that works with you back up in the Hiawatha area. Behind the scenes, you quietly just do a lot of great work. And around this council table, I know that number of individuals such as Corey and Rick and Marchie and so forth, and Donna Hilsinger have worked on the board. So everyone's efforts are definitely appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, looks like that's the extent of it. So thank you for your time today. Madam Clerk, that brings us to 6.4, evolution.
It does. And we have attending by Zoom, Remy Morrow, the Vice President of External and Government Relations, and Simon LaRoche, Vice President of Trade and Marketing, as well as James Rio.
Welcome to council. We have the material you provided, so we're in your hands. I think you have a presentation here, and the deputy clerk should be putting that up in a second.
Perfect.
Oh, so the presentation is up, gentlemen. Welcome, and we're happy to hear from you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, council, for allowing us to meet with you today. So as it was mentioned, my name is Remy Moreau. I'm the Vice President for Government and External Relations for Evolution, which is the Canadian business of Brookfield Renewable. I'm joined by my colleague Simon Laroche, who's the Vice President for Trading and Marketing as well, and Jim Rill, who is the Senior Director for Operations for Evolution. So, we are here today to talk to you about an innovative and exciting projects that basically will respond directly to the ISO's call for additional capacity due to increased demand. My colleague Simon will be presenting the project to you, but before we get into that, we thought it would be good to kind of give you a bit of background on the company. So Brookfield Renewable is our global company. We have about 21,000 megawatts of generating capacity globally. And in Canada, so Evolution, we have about 1,900 megawatts of generating capacity across Quebec, Ontario, and BC. In Ontario, we have about 49 facilities with generating capacity of about 1,400 megawatts. And our head office is in Gatineau, Quebec, as I'm sure you're aware. So basically, today, what we are hoping to get is your support for this project through a resolution, which I believe that you've all seen before. So with that said, I will pass it to my colleague Simon, who will be presenting the project.
Thank you, Remy, and thanks very much for having us today. We're excited to have the opportunity to speak about this project. So I'm gonna just to present some highlights today. Keep in mind that the project is still in preliminary design. So we're working on advancing the project and also working hand in hand with the IESO and the upcoming RFP that should be issued at the beginning of August. Just overall, we named the battery project Timberwolf, and it's what we call the Battery Energy Storage System, or the short name BESS. And this will be an innovative and low carbon technology project. It will consist of modular lithium-ion technology batteries with a capacity, and you could go to next slide. Sorry, we're not following the deck here. And next slide again, please. Yes, thank you very much. So in total, the project is 161 megawatts of installed capacity, and that contains 4 hours of energy. So in total, it's 644 megawatt hours of energy. It's a large project. Currently in the world, we've done a bit of research, and the largest projects of this kind are about 300 to 400 megawatts of installed capacity in the US. So yeah, the location is about 15 kilometers from Sault Ste. Marie in the city, and we'll need about 10 acres of land at the maximum. That will be co-located with Evolution's Prince Wind Farm. The project could be sited on Crown land, but we're also investigating options on the private land. So in terms of timelines, we're really working with the IESO RFP timelines. As I mentioned, the RFP will be published the beginning of August, and bids for this RFP are due at the beginning of November, with contract awards by December 15th. So it's very short timelines, and it's really driven by a significant need from the IESO for additional capacity in the system to be deployed and built and reach commercial operations by May 2025. And there will be also other RFPs for more capacity coming in the following year, and we're hearing that there could be more RFPs too. Overall, there's a need for about 4,000 to 5,000 megawatts of new installed capacity for the rest of the decade in Ontario. The project would create jobs, especially during construction, which will happen mostly in the back half of 2023, but mostly in 2024. And also operating jobs once the project is commercial. It represents an investment of approximately $300 million that would be sponsored by Evolution and Brookfield. So the BESS will be charging at night, mostly during off-peak hours from Prince Wind Farm and also from the grid, and would be discharging during the peak times, and really helping displace some carbon-emitting sources of generation, of electricity generation. We expect that the project would be doing this on a daily basis, producing about 1 cycle a day of charge and discharge. We think that the project is well positioned to be competitive in the IESO RFP. The IESO has indicated some needs in the southwest of the province, also closer to Toronto in the Ottawa region. And also in the north, we've heard that there are some needs, although in the current RFP, the expedited RFP, as it's called by the IESO, it appears that the north is not the top priority. But still, with project proponents like Brookfield and the fact that it's co-located with Prince Wind Farm, we believe that we're well positioned. If successful and awarded a contract towards the end of the year, we will move forward with the project. Okay, next slide, please. So we hope that the project is successful and help establish Sault Ste. Marie region as their hub really for renewable electricity. I mentioned already additional jobs, like large-scale investment post-COVID, and really what we want to highlight here today is that This is really like an innovative project. There aren't many projects of this scale in Canada currently, and it's enabling using excess renewable electricity, especially from wind at night, and placing it right where it counts the most during the peaks. I mentioned this already, but I'm just highlighting that it would be modular batteries, power equipment. It could require an additional substation. We're still working on preliminary design with the engineering firm, and light security infrastructure like fencing, for example, and the security cameras. We're expecting that this type of project has a minimal impact on the environment and the community. So minimal impact on biodiversity and little noise too at 85 decibel per at 10 meters. Lower noise impact than wind, for example. Also minimal impact on traffic when the project is operational, no gas or odors emitted. Next slide, please. In terms of next step, we're committed to building trust with local stakeholders. We went through a series of community consultation, public consultations to gather questions and feedback from the community. It was well received overall. Like I would have to say that the comments and the feedback received were supportive of the project. So we're in the feasibility stage, both on the commercial and technical aspects, but hoping to be successful in the IESO RFP. In terms of what we were here for today, and as Remy mentioned a bit earlier, we have to demonstrate that we have done the community consultation, and also that we have successfully received support of the municipal council. So I think that's the extent of our presentation. Jim Reel, who's local to Sault Ste. Marie, and our senior director for operations, is here to help answer any question with Remy and I. With this, I will thank you very much for your time today.
Appreciate presentation. Before we get into questions that might have, I'm going to have the resolution that's associated with.
So it's a motion by councillors Dufour and Bruni, whereas the independent electricity system operator has launched several major acquisition programs, including the expedited request for projects and the long-term request for projects. And whereas one or more projects may be built in the Sault Ste. Marie area, and whereas the independent electricity system operator requires that projects must receive municipal council support in form of a resolution to be granted a contract, and whereas Evolution by Brookfield Renewable is proposing to develop, construct, and operate a battery storage system. The project would be co-located with Evolution's existing Prince Wind Farm, approximately 15 kilometers outside of Sault Ste. Marie, and consists of installing battery modules and potentially a new substation. The project is in the feasibility stage and is expected to be operational by May 2025, subject to independent electricity system operator approval, with planned installed capacity of 161 megawatts, 644 I'm assuming that's what that means, of energy storage. And whereas once operational, this project will increase the supply and reliability of the grid in the Sault Ste. Marie area. The project will create both construction and operational jobs in the region and will grow Evolution's footprint in the Sault Ste. Marie area. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the City of Sault Ste. Marie supports the construction and operation of Evolution's battery storage system project.
I'd be curious to understand the results of the community consultation meetings, Mr. Mayor. That would certainly be key to me feeling confident about this moving forward.
We can't hear you, Mr. Mayor, or being extremely low. But I can answer the question if that works.
My mic might have been, okay, there, you could probably hear me now.
Yeah,
Yeah, so gentlemen, if you could give us a sense of the community consultations and the results of those and the feedback you received.
Yeah, I can start. I mean, and thank you for the question. So I think the community consultation went very well. There was not a lot of participants, but from what we gather was positive comments. A few folks actually looking for contractors, if you're looking for potential working opportunities as well for the project. But we did not receive any negative feedback. Maybe Jim Reel, would you have anything to add on that?
Do we have Jim in the meeting?
I believe he's on the phone.
He's muted, I think, right now. So maybe Jim, you're on mute if you are speaking to us.
So we had, and excuse us if Jim is not, we had about 6 people giving positive feedback. And as I said, they mostly wanted to partner with us. That was the main feedback.
So they don't seem like they were heavily attended, Councillor Hilsinger, but the feedback they received was positive.
I would also like to point out, while I have the floor, Mr. Mayor, that this project, in terms of batteries, it's certainly something that we're excited about. This would be Evolution's first investment in batteries right here in Sault Ste. Marie. So very exciting for us.
Anything else, Council? I did ask at the PUC how the PUC leadership had any opinions or thoughts on this, and they said it would be a nice project to see proceed. So that might be helpful to your thinking. Okay, so we'll call a vote on the motion. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you for your time, gentlemen. We'll get that motion signed and off to you in the next day or so.
Thank you very much, Council and Mr. Mayor.
Appreciate your patience this evening.
No problem.
No problem.
That, I think, brings us to the consent agenda. Am I not correct about that, Madam Clerk?
You are correct.
So I'm just going to do 2 things here. The first thing I'm going to do is, before we get into consent, because there's some planning items on it, should point out to Council and welcome and recognize Mr. Tenazzo, who is here tonight in a different capacity. Mr. Tenazzo has recently gone through the process and become the Director of Planning at City of Sault Ste. Marie. So he is here tonight for the first time in that capacity. So I wanted to recognize that and congratulate him. And I also wanted to move 713 up, because we have some folks that are here, I think, to see the outcome of 713. And I want to deal with that at the outset so that they could hear what we have to say and they don't have to wait for us to get to that. So we'll deal with 713 first. Any councilors have any? Are you on 713, Councilor Bruni? We'll start with you then.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question to Mr. Ver. Excuse me, you're requesting $100,000 in support for the Youth Hub project, but the other partners, what will the other partners provide?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruni, we do have other funding partners supporting this initiative. Youth Wellness Hubs Ontario will contribute $100,000 as well. Algoma Family Services will be contributing $50,000 towards the project. We do have Ali Juma here today as well, who can speak to the project, but I know part of the plan is once they have a location secured, there will be outreach and fundraising going on to support the activities of the Youth Hub. So this is kind of the first step to finalize a location, and then the activities and programming, et cetera, will benefit from ongoing fundraising for this initiative. As well, there will be leasehold improvements for the building and equipment and things that will be needed. So there will be future costs that Ali and the different stakeholders in the community are confident they can support.
Okay, thank you, and I will support it.
Okay, next I have Councillor Hilsinger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I love this project. I love this project. I love this project. My question is, in the report, it states that the Ontario Youth Hubs has provided housing for 2 years at $500,000. And I'm just wondering what the plan is after that. Can somebody help me?
Yeah, we're gonna have Tom direct that question if he's not going to address it.
Mayor, to Councillor Hilsinger, I think we'll allow Mr. Juma to speak to this and talk about the plans going forward.
Welcome to Council, Ali. It's nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Your Worship. Good evening, and good evening to city councilors and to city staff and to those joining us virtually and in person. It's nice to actually be here and see you in person after 2+ years. So in answer to your question regarding how this will be supported. So Youth Wellness Hubs Ontario is an initiative that was started in 2017. There are currently 14 youth hubs that are operating now since 2017. And the Addictions Recovery Fund, which was announced in February of $90 million, also included support of 6 new youth wellness hubs, with Algoma being recognized as one of them. So while there isn't a commitment straight up, what we do know is that there is a commitment by government to see these youth wellness hubs continue, as evidenced by the youth wellness hubs that were approved in 2017 and the 14 that are currently in operation and 6 that will join them. So there is a strong commitment by Algoma Family Services and also our partners, even before we were designated as a youth wellness hub, to ensure that this would be something that we could support and keep and be sustainable going forward. The very fact that we were designated a youth wellness hub is sort of the cherry on the proverbial cake. To sort of recognize that the collaboration supporting this was unprecedented. We haven't had this level of collaboration with regards to this particular initiative. And the fact that we do would indicate, that idea that it takes a community to raise a child. Well, that's certainly the case here, as evidenced by a number of partners that are supporting this initiative. In addition, I want to acknowledge, I have my three of my 4 sons here, and these are the youth that will be the adults of tomorrow. And the investment of the $100,000 will allow us to make some of the capital improvements if the Dennis Street location is proved to be viable to move forward. We're not asking for ongoing funding. This is one-time capital expense. However, if the city council so desires to continue to fund the initiative, we certainly would welcome that as well.
You're to be commended for working together. That's incredible. Congratulations.
Thank you, Councillor.
Was that the extent of your comments, Councillor?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Shoemaker.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Mr. Juma sort of hit the point in his last comment there. City of Sault Ste. Marie provides funding for a seniors drop-in center and a senior center in the West End. And since Collegiate Heights closed a number of years ago, we haven't had what we used to be called a teen center, and now will be called the Youth Hub. And so I think it's, in addition to this funding pocket, it's time that the city did put operational funds into this type of hub, unless, of course, the provincial government's willing to fund it on an ongoing basis. So beyond the end of the term of the Youth Hub's funding, I'd like to see the city put in some funding for the Youth Hub to continue.
Thank you.
May I also add, Your Worship, we have a representative from the Canadian Mental Health Association, Pamela Fabe, the Director of Services. So further to the comment with regards to partners investment from Councillor Bruni, the CMHA has $50,000. So between AFS, CMHA, that's 100,000, Youth Wellness Hub, another 100,000. If so approved tonight, that would be another 100,000 by City Council. We estimate it'll take about $500,000 to really make the proposed site viable, and that is the renovations and the purchase of the facility. We're already 75% there. And we have a commitment by the community to fundraise through the AFS Foundation for the remainder.
Thank you, Ali. Councillor Shoemaker, that was the extent of your comments. Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. This is very exciting. I think the community will definitely be behind this. And I think once the doors open, you'll see some more donations coming. Having said that, maybe it's too early to ask this question, but can you give us a sense that when this is up and running, what the hours would be? Is it 7 days a week? Kids, youth, weekends are busy and staffing and so forth, but can you give us an idea?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for your question. Through Youth Wellness Hub, the funding allows for 5 days a week. That is the expectation. However, our hope is to have it 7 days a week, working with some of our community organizations in addition to the professional services that will be providing services there. We do know that there's significant community interest, and we're hoping to expand and include those services within that hub to have 7-day-a-week service.
That's good news. Because there's so many wonderful services out there, and not to be negative, that are usually 9 to 5, and this is not 9 to 5, as we all know.
Absolutely.
So I know that you're striving towards 7 days and not 9 to 5. So that's really good news. Maybe again, it's too early to ask this question. In the report, I read about supplying food or something along that line. Are you able to elaborate on that? Is there going to be another food bank, or are you going to be working in conjunction with our existing food banks around our community?
Great question. We hope to work with the Harvest Algoma and Grocer for Good to provide food. So the Dennis Street location actually has a commercial kitchen in the basement. And we also hope to create some social enterprise where young people are learning the skills that they need to not only source food, but prepare food and maybe even sell it. Perhaps maybe City Council themselves will purchase some sandwiches from this enterprise once up and running as a way of generating revenue to support the services and programs offered there. But food is a significant component. We know there's a huge need in our community, particularly with the youth. And so rather than recreating the wheel, we want to work with the established partners that are already have set some groundwork in this area. And I think this will make this more sustainable than what we experienced when there was a reference to 1997, the Sault Ste. Marie Teen Center. I was one of the founding board members of that teen center, and it's 25 years since we launched that. So I'm really excited. I'm glad you mentioned excitement, because I'm excited about it. Pleased to hear that you're excited about it. I think together we can make a really good go of this, and this time it'll be more sustainable than what we had last time.
And just one last comment. I'm glad you mentioned sustainability. I think that's, well, when you create such a wonderful project like this and you get the youth so engaged, and then something happens in the future where you can't sustain it, it's such, wow, it's such a step back, and we don't want that to happen. So I'm glad you mentioned sustainability, and programs for the youth is critical. It sets a good foundation for our young, and it hopes to open some other doors and a new path for our youth. And so thank you. And again, if there's anything we can do, please come back.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, or Councillor Dufour.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Ali and the team and all of the partners. I'm very excited to support this project and to bring it forward. I just wanted to take one quick minute just to also thank and acknowledge the folks at the Sault Ste. Marie Housing Corporation and the DSAB, who've also played important role in the back end in ensuring that the capital purchase and the building can be properly taken care of, and done so with no additional profit baked in. So Mr. Juma's operational budget is able to be kept with every dollar going right into services, because the Sault Ste. Marie Housing Corporation is providing those landlord type services and hopefully owning the building in order to house what is a tremendous community asset. So I just wanted to thank our staff at DSAB and at Housing for supporting this kind of new service model that, like I said, ensures that as many dollars as possible are going to the folks who really need it. So thank you very much, Ali.
Well, thank you, Councillor Dufour. And I mean, that's another great example of just the unprecedented collaboration that's happening in an effort to make this youth hub happen. So it wouldn't have been possible without the DSAB.
Absolutely. And I have many fond memories of that building as a youth too. So I'm like you, really excited to see things come full circle and to get a resource that's really important to the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anything else in 713? Just good work to all the parties involved. Thank you for your dedication to this. It is exciting. It's a great project. Happy to see it getting underway, and certainly we'll be supportive of it. So thank you. It's in consent, so we don't vote on things separately. So I have a strong sense it's going to receive support of everybody. So I don't think you have to wait around for the vote if you've got other things to do.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just want to thank Pam and my boys for joining us, and my wife as well. This was in recognition of one of the last times we'll probably have this opportunity with you, Mr. Mayor, before you take your leave. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, I thought to myself, actually, Ali, when you came in with your boys, because you brought them to council a few times now. And I thought to myself how time has passed because they do not look anything they like the first time you brought them here. So it's
Yeah,
nice to
maybe
see.
I can ask you just to stand up because the last time we came before you, they were shorter than
They
I
were a
was.
lot shorter.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah. Apparently I've shrunk.
That is certainly true. That is certainly true. It's nice to see you. Nice to see you again. So thanks, Ali.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Okay, council, we're on consent. Do any of you have matters on the consent agenda? Councilor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The outstanding council resolutions, through you, I suppose, to either the CAO or the clerk. A number of them, and I'll use the first one as an example because it's the oldest one. The off-road vehicle use for municipal roadways. The initiating resolution was June 22nd, 2015. Terry Sheehan, I think, was the mover of that report or of that resolution, even though this one's identified as Judy. I think that was the subsequent one. So Terry hasn't been on council for about 6 years. Yeah. Is there a way, I mean, I see it says it's going to be done in Q4 2022. Does the staff need, that one in particular, I guess, a motion that it shall not be beyond a Q4 of 2022? I mean, it's been 8 years.
So we're gonna have to ask CEO to address that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Shoemaker. I think on that one in particular, there have been a number of issues with it, preventing it from coming back to council, certainly in a timely manner. What I may suggest is prior to this appearing before you the next time, which will be getting very close to the end of term, that we will do a more thorough read of it as staff, and perhaps that can be some of the final actions of this council to purge some things that may be either not relevant or too much time has passed.
Okay, I mean, that as for the list as a whole, I think that makes sense. For that initial motion or that first motion on the list here about off-road vehicles using the roadways. I mean, other municipalities have done it, so I'm not sure why there would be such a delay there. But I guess that is one that piqued my interest as being long outstanding that probably is resolvable.
Do you have a comment for that?
Not at this time.
Okay. Well, I agree with Councilor Shoemaker on this point. There are some matters on here. It would be nice to see us do away with the very long-standing ones as best as we can before the end of this term. The reality is, I think we have one meeting left in July, we have one meeting in August, and we have one meeting in September. And the nominations close on August 19th, which would affect really the substance of the business we could do at that September meeting. So I don't want to belabor this, but I'm just going to ask that staff make their best efforts to return to the July or August meeting any matter it can return that is dated that we could finalize in the term of this council. That sound good, Councilor Shoemaker?
That seems reasonable to me.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else on that? Is it 7.5? I think this is 7.5. Councilor Christian?
Someone different tack to this. I'm just looking at the August 9th, 2021 labor force recruitment. We were asking for quarterly reports. Just a different way of phrasing the question. Is there a reason for this particular one being delayed quite as long as it has been? To me, this type of information is especially important for an election year, and I'm a bit surprised that we haven't had anything on this one. To me, this information is, it should be relevant, relatively current and relatively easy to put together. I'm just wondering why it's taking so long.
Mr. CEO, do you know the one he's referring you to?
Yes, I see that's for Mr. Bear.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Christian. Sorry, we did have some delay in getting this back. We had a break with our labor force development coordinator and bringing someone new on board, as well as getting the relevant data to provide to council. But it is something that we can put together and have something for council. We've committed to Q3 here, so we'll have something at the next meeting.
That would be appreciated, even if it's, it's somewhat abbreviated. I think it's important for all of council and the city as a whole to get a sense of how we're doing, and, it would be appreciated. Thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you. Anybody else in 7.5? Councillor Hollings, Councillor Hilsinger.
Thank you. I think if we were to look back at previous reports, we would see that many of these items keep getting moved forward. So I would ask the CAO if they could think about, or is there a suggestion about how we could put a different system in place? How should things be prioritized? How could we make things happen faster?
Through you to Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hilsinger, staff do deal with these resolutions. Staff also deal with day-to-day operational matters, and staff deal with other issues that are either arise in the community or come before them from council that are considered more pressing. We are also dealing with many pressures coming out of the pandemic, as any other municipality and many other businesses occur. So I don't have any reason to believe that it's the delay in getting some of these things back is due to staff not wanting to bring them back or wasting time and trying to get them back before you. It's merely a matter of driving them with day-to-day operations.
Yeah, there's so many progressive ideas on this list of resolutions. It's a lot of forward-thinking things. There's things that are going to help to grow the economy or make more vibrancy and all kinds of things. And so I would just leave it with all of you to look at ways that we could move those things forward more quickly. Thank you.
Anybody else on 7.5? I would note in closing to this, in recognition of staff, over the term of the last council and this council, we have been a very active council for bringing and passing resolutions. So staff are hired to do their full job description in their jobs, and they are, I can kind of confirm, being in the building with them significantly over the last period of time, busy doing those jobs. We've added a lot of work, and I don't say that in a negative way, but they have to balance the work that we send and the resolutions we send and the ideas we have with getting the day-to-day work of the city done. So I think that's where some of this might not get back to us as quickly as we'd like it to. So we'll do our best over the next couple months to close off as many of these things as possible. So Councillor Shoemaker, did you have anything else besides 7.5?
I did, thank you. Registration of tax arrears certificates, 7.11.
Yep.
Through you to the CFO. Am I correct in understanding that these registrations or notices are done once per year?
To you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Shoemaker, yes, it's done once a year.
And so at this time, would the notices that went out last year be going for advertisement for sale?
The notices that went out last year at this time will be going in the fall for tax sale. These are registering the ones for 2023 because there's a year for the owner to take care of the tax balance before it goes to tax sale.
Okay, and so why, if the timeline is that it happens once a year, why are we waiting for the fall to put the ones from last year up for sale?
Typically, through the Municipal Act, as soon as a property has 3 years in arrears, it can go for tax sale. We spent a lot of time prior to registering it to try to collect it and bring the list down significantly and working with the homeowner. So that's why it's usually at this time of year that you'll see it, because we've exhausted all of our measures at this point.
I guess, yeah, that explains one step back, but then from the point where we've given them notice, and registered the certificate, then like, why aren't we putting those properties from last year up for sale in July? Why are we waiting till September or October?
The ones that are registered
We're
after
giving-
the year?
Yes.
So the year period is prescribed through regulations. We can't change that.
Right.
So you want to move we can move the tax sale up. It just means that our procedures that we do in-house to try to collect it and work with the taxpayers will be cut short as well.
No, I'm saying if we're registering, or we're giving notice now for these property owners that next year their properties may be sold if they don't pay their arrears, correct?
Correct. Oh, I see what you're saying.
So
Sorry,
what
my
last-
apologies. I wasn't understanding what you were saying. No, typically, it's just been past practice. It's always been in the fall that the tax sale's been done. There's nothing to say after that 1 year period that we don't have the tax sale in July.
Okay. I guess that would be.
Yeah, it's just
I think
historically.
doing it in the high selling season would make the most sense.
Yeah. I can take that back to my staff for their consideration.
Okay, thank you. That was my only question on that.
Okay, on the same matter, Councillor Nero,
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Schell, the total amount for this year or this report, is there a significant difference for year over year or anything like that?
I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but typically it is very substantial when we first register the properties. But as the year progresses, before it goes actually to tax sale, this list becomes very small. And sometimes we'll only have 5 or 6 properties, if that actually go to tax sale.
You would consider this very substantial?
I think anything is substantial, over $100,000, I think is substantial to the community. So yes, it is.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anybody else in 7-Eleven? Councillor Shoemaker, anything else?
Thank you. The blue box transition, 7.22. Miss Hamilton Beach. Oh, there you are. Hello. Thanks for the report. It was very thorough. It sounds like if we withdraw from the management of managing our recycling collection system, as we're required to do by July 15th, either withdraw or stay in, there's a potential for savings, at least at the outset, but then you think those savings might be eaten up by a mandatory composting program?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Shoemaker. Yes, I think it is very fair to say there will be savings in the business of recycling. It will no longer be the municipality's responsibility. There still will be some expenses, and those are yet to be determined how they will be deciphered. But yes, we do like to recognize that right within the area of waste management, there are substantial regulatory changes that are coming down the pipe that all in all are a very good thing for the community, but will have costs associated with them.
And so that's I suppose there's some positives to that, and that we're saving money. But from the viewpoint of actually wanting to encourage further recycling, the recycling system will still be administered, correct? There will still be recycling picked up and managed locally, just not by us.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Shoemaker, you are correct. We will absolutely have a program which in the transition years will look very similar to what we have currently, but we'll have that list of materials expanded and potentially changed to the services after our transition date.
Okay, and finally, probably too early to have any real ballpark, but in terms of savings, what is the budget of our recycling program now?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Shoemaker, I believe we are just over 600,000 that actually comes from the municipal budget, and we are provided funding in addition to that.
Okay, so our outlay is 600,000.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else in 722? Councillor Shoemaker?
Yes, the last one, 7.26, single-use plastics ban bylaw update. Didn't have any questions on this, but I did want to thank staff for, hi Emily, for kind of recognizing that the federal government has taken some fairly concrete steps in the last few weeks, and I think it's a reasonable path forward to mirror what they're doing because they have, greater
Regulatory authority.
That's right, over this issue specifically. So I think to mirror what they're doing is the most prudent approach for our businesses so that we're not burdening them in addition to, what the federal government's doing. Thank you.
I want to recognize Metro. Metro has removed plastic bags from their stores. I thought when that happened, it might create a bit of a row, but it really hasn't. I have far too many of those new red bags because I often sometimes forget the plastic bags, and when we buy groceries, we have to buy a lot of them. But it's not been inconvenient, and they've made it affordable, and the bags are solid. But one of the things I've noticed, which I think is sensible, is I actually bag a lot less things. And I think when we had the plastic bags and they were available, maybe we used them gratuitously. And I often put things in the cart that don't need a bag and just the girls to help me carry them from the car to the house when I get home. And it's actually easier than bagging everything in those plastic bags. So I think we're making some progress. Thank you, Emily, for your report. I always find your reports very substantive. Appreciate them. Councillor Hilsinger had her hand up on this, so I'll go to you.
Thank you. I have a bit of a different perspective than Councillor Shoemaker on this particular item. We had 8 months to have a bylaw put in place by July 1st, which was what the resolution asked for and was approved. I'm very confused as to where the alignment with the federal regulations, which came and were announced on June 20th, if my memory serves me correctly, has become something that is important. As the mayor pointed out, there are numerous grocery stores and hospitality or restaurants and takeout places who have gone ahead without a bylaw in place and have stopped using plastic bags. And I do not understand why we cannot push this forward. I do not understand why people need more time. There are businesses that have shown they can do it. So how could we, and not enforcing for over a year, we have a responsibility to our environment, and let's take it seriously. And, Mr. Mayor, I can offer you need a system for remembering to put the bags in your car. However, because I had to learn one too, I've been doing that for years now, not taking plastic bags. And I don't use plastic produce bags in the grocery store and things like that. And it does change your habits, but we need to be brave and we need to do our part. So I ask Emily, thank you for the report. I ask to whomever, perhaps the CAO, why do we have to wait? Can we drive this forward faster? Can we get a report back with an actual bylaw by August 8th and show that we stand up for our environment and that we are going to do something that other communities are going to wait 2 more years to do?
Okay, so I'll give that to the CEO and you can direct it to Emily as you see fit.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hilsinger, just to clarify that, I think you're talking about implementation of the bylaw. The report notes that the bylaw will come before you in August, but the actual implementation of the bylaw would be delayed. And I think that's what you're questioning.
I'm just looking, yes.
Yeah. So I'm going to refer that to the city solicitor for a response.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hilsinger. I appreciate that you want this done right away. The idea of delaying it is twofold, really. Although there are a lot of national companies that have been already using the no plastic, there are a number of independents in town that are confused about what's going to happen. There's a process where we get calls, Emily and I, on a regular basis about the bylaw, what's going to be in it, what's going to be exempted. So I think there's an education piece that needs to take place as to what bags we're talking about. People will ask us, can I use it for this? What are the exemptions? So that education piece would be probably appreciated by the people that have to now live with the bylaw. It'll allow businesses to adjust. There's people who have said, well, I've already purchased a large number of these things. What am I supposed to do with them now? can I keep using them until I won't order anymore, but can I use these up? There's also some confusion about the straws, for example. Can I use them in hospital settings? Can I use them in care settings? And so those are things that I think need to be explained and understood by the people using them. There's also, with the federal regulations, there's a rollout period, and it's part of that too. Not everything will be plastic prohibited right away, and they will have differences even in, for example, plastic forks. If it's a thick plastic, it won't be part of this ban. If it's a thin plastic, it will be. So there's quite a bit of information. I didn't think we wanted to be in conflict with the federal regulations and then have to change this bylaw again and have to reintroduce it to people. From the enforcement perspective, I think it makes sense to have people using this for a while before we have enforcement. We have very little enforcement officers. It would be complaint driven only. And so the education part and the buy-in part is more important, I think, than the enforcement part, which I think will be hard to enforce, given our limited people that are doing bylaw enforcement, and that we ask our bylaw enforcement officers to do a number of other things. I hope that answers your question.
On that, if I might ask, have we thought about working with the retailers or grocery stores, et cetera, who have already implemented these changes in a very significant way to help educate, to help create ideas or source products or whatever? Is there that? I'll just leave that with you as a thought, because there's a lot happening out there, but there's still a lot more to go. So one last question. We got to make the moves that we can make, and we have to make them as quickly as we can. And I don't think we have to be patient. There also in that resolution was a community waste reduction strategy asked for. Could I get an update on where that's at?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hilsinger, that will be coming as a separate report, likely in August as well. That's coming from the engineering area. We do have a third-party consultant working on assisting staff in developing that.
So the report will actually be a strategy that will say, do this to implement a waste reduction in your community?
That's correct. It will also know what we're already doing and have been doing over the past few years to reduce waste.
Okay.
Divert waste.
Okay, thank you.
To the extent of your comments and questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so we are going to go Councillor Gardy, then Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. First, to Councillor Hilsinger's point, I don't know the date exactly, but I brought forward the original motion, I think about close to 18 months ago. So it's been more than 7 or 8 months that we've had to kind of plan for this. And the intent at the time was not to wait for the federal government or the provincial government, considering how, they often move on things. That was the original intent. Is there any way through you, Mr. Mayor, to either the city solicitor, Malcolm or Emily, that a bylaw that we were to kind of come up with could address maybe a couple of items? Like I know Ms. Fields mentioned we don't want to kind of have to replicate what the federal government may be doing for us soon. But there are a number of grocery establishments in town that have, as you mentioned, Mayor, gotten rid of their plastic grocery bags. So I'm thinking even like plastic grocery bags, is that something that we could move on more quickly than some of the other items? That's one question. You can put it through you to whomever could answer that. And then I have an additional question.
Well, I'm going to suggest neither you nor Councillor Hilsinger asked to have this pulled from consent, but it seems to me that it should be pulled from consent for a separate conversation, and we can continue with the consent.
Yeah, we didn't precipitate the conversation though.
Pardon me?
We didn't precipitate this conversation, so if
No, but do you like, if you want to answer your question, if you want.
Sure.
If you want to change things or direct staff in a different way than's outlined in this report, we have to pull it from consent. So.
okay, so okay, yeah, thank
So
you.
if you want to say to staff, like, look, I'm going to vote against this because I want you to go back and bring back an abridged bylaw or a bylaw that deals with certain things, then we would pull this from consent. So if that's what you're proposing, that's probably where we.
Well,
should
so I asked the question for clarity to see, one, if that is a viable option. So do we have to pull it for me to ask a question to see if it's viable? Because I don't know if I'm gonna want to pull it to give them a different direction.
Well, if you were to direct staff to do that, they could do it. I certainly welcome their feedback on whether they see that as you ask, viable.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Gallagher, it's viable if you would like us to initiate different timelines as to when things, for example, start right away with grocery bags, or give a month so people, can be prepared for that. We can do that.
Thanks. I just, I have a comment, and then I'll, so there was a lot of talk when this was originally brought forward about some creative ideas that staff might have in addressing what would people do without some of these items, i.e. grocery bags. And I remember, Councillor Scott had brought forward an idea that he had seen elsewhere in the province or the country. To me, it doesn't seem, back to our previous conversation when Councillor Scott or Councillor Shoemaker referenced the timing of things coming back to us. So I appreciate that this is back. It's back late, and it's back without a bylaw that we asked for to come on July 1st. I just don't know that, going back to what Councillor Hilsinger said, like, these are urgent matters, and working to kind of, combat things that the climate is and the natural environment are throwing our way are of the utmost urgency. And I would suggest that moving forward, any resolutions brought by any member of this council that relates directly with improving any of our natural ecosystems or the environment itself, take priority over some others that aren't so important. So I'm not pulling anything from anyone from any agenda, but those are my thoughts. Thanks.
Can anybody else on 726? Does anybody have anything else on the consent agenda they want to canvass? So we'll go, were you on 726? Yeah, on 726. Okay, yes, go ahead.
Just a quick comment. At first we were talking about plastic bags, but now we kind of talking about the environment. I just want to make a quick comment. Within our own hands, within our own community, within our own city, such as John Rhodes Center, all our arenas and so forth. I'm just going to throw this out there. I think we talked about trying to eliminate plastic bottles, water bottles, pop bottles and things that from vending machines and selling them. That's all I want to say. I hope that we're driving forward and eliminating that because that is in our power to do. And that's all I want to say.
No one else in 726. In conclusion, I'll just thank all of the private and public sector organizations in our community who have made the move to reduce plastic use in their operations, their private operations and their public operations. It's important, and we appreciate that. So we're going to move on to the consent agenda. I'm going to go to Councillor Scott. I saw his hand last, so Councillor Scott, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just on 7.1, no questions, more or less just a congratulatory announcement there, or comment for Councillor Dufour being appointed to the AMO Board of Directors. So it's nice to see somebody from Sault Ste. Marie, especially from the north. And I just wanted to extend my congratulations to Councillor Dufour.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And that's everything.
Okay, so is there anything else in the consent agenda? Councillor Dufour, you have matters?
Thank you very much, Councillor Scott. I appreciate that. My matter was 7.8, leasing and operation space at the expanded Northern Community Center. So through you to the CAO or Brent Lamming, my question was just about the successful RFP for the operator. I saw that ADSB won the RFP. So I was just wondering if you could share more about what service the ADSB will be offering there and just how it fits in with the mandate of a recreation center.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Dufour, yeah, the ADSB submission, they'll be operating out of the 4 spaces. They submitted a submission with respect to offering $45,000 for the year, another $3,500 for utilities. During that time, they'll offer programming in the space, all 4 spaces. This will also lead to potential increased rentals of soccer pitches, ice rentals as well. They're also going to encourage volunteerism of their students within the classrooms to volunteer in the facility, which would be a great fit with respect to the sporting teams that are there, the senior center as well. So it's really an exciting opportunity to have another partnership with a potential school board. And we've had many in the past with the Pass to Knowledge program, some programs on the Hub Trail Community Garden. So a very strong submission from the Goma District School Board.
Thanks. Do we know what kind of programming they'll be offering?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Dufour. Yeah, so this will be their class. This is just to clarify. This will be their own classroom space that'll be within the facility. So students will be there with teachers. So it'll actually be expanded classrooms that will be there. So that's the program that they'll be doing. Is they'll actually have space there to offer their programming for school.
Okay. And then I guess my other question is if those classroom spaces won't be used in the evenings and weekends, or will we be able to reach out to other proponents who had recreation proposals to see if those times and hours might suit them?
Dear Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Dufour, yes, the good thing with this submission right here is it will have evenings and weekends so that the city can rent that space similar to what we do at the John Rhodes Community Center right now. So it will not be allowed for the proponents to be in the space because it has to be returned to the condition so that the school board can use it the following day. So they'll be set up as classroom space during the day, and evenings and weekends, different user groups can use the facility.
Okay, so the spaces will be set up as classrooms then throughout the day, like with desks and chairs and stuff like that?
You, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Dufour, that is correct.
Okay. I think I want to pull this item from consent if that's okay.
No problem. So Madam Clerk, we'll just note that. Do you have any other matters in consent, Councillor Dufour?
No, that's it.
Any other matters on consent, Council? Councillor Hollingsworth, go ahead.
I hope it's okay because we kind of went to the environment over and over, but just quickly, 7.20 with regards to plastic bags downtown.
Go ahead, it's on there.
Okay, just quickly. Great initiative. It's a wonderful group that we may have missed. So thank you for honing in on this particular group. Quick question, did you consider cloth bags?
Councillor Hollingsworth, yes, they were suggested to the group that is the Downtown Association that is working on the project. However, it was decided that the project that they received the quote for would be approved by the committee, and it was approved in that fashion. So they are reusable. They are a little less expensive, but we have made recommendations to them because if you read in their report that they submitted, that they would like to pilot this program, but hopefully expand on it in the future to consider a cloth bag that is better for the environment.
Do I hug you now or later? Yeah, you're right. You're the expert. I'm not the expert, just based on my real basic research. I know that a Danish study has been done to look at cloth bags and these reusable plastic bags that we keep harping on. And the thick plastic bags are still not good for the environment. When you break down, they don't break down, the cloth ones do. And so I don't want to say it, but I'm going to say it. It's a false feeling that people are going out and using these plastic bags and they're going hurrah, hurrah. But you know how many people are buying these reusable plastic bags because they forget them in the car, they forget them at home. And guess what? They're going to still end up in the landfill. So thank you for pushing for cloth bags. And I know you're going to continue on it. And one final question, going back quickly, sorry, Mayor, plastic bottles. Are you looking at replacing plastic bottles within our city arenas and facilities?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth, the scope of the project was single-use plastics. So specifically plastics that you can only use once. As it stands, plastic bottles for water, juices, etc., are currently recyclable.
Still disagree. I would like you to hopefully move forward. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other matters on consent? Councillor Hilsinger?
That's me. I have a question about the hiring policy update to the CAO. So
7.4.
thank you, 7.4. So I just wanted to understand, because I just didn't see it clearly, but I know it's in there. Like, what exactly changed in the new policy? That's my first question. And my second question is, how did we land on that decision? Did we consider not hiring relatives? There are many companies that have, and businesses, et cetera, that have policies like specific to, because of some of the challenges that can arise. Could you help us understand how you landed on that decision?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hilsinger. The first part of your question was asking what specifically changed. The two substantive changes to the former policy are that it no longer applies just to senior management. It applies to all the supervisory levels in the corporation. The other major change was that it no longer refers to direct supervision only. It refers to direct and indirect supervision. In looking at the policy and revising it, I worked with the city solicitor through her experience in labor relations. We also canvassed views from other municipalities to arrive at what we think is current best practice. For it, there are some communities that have policies that go a little further as far as the definition of relative. We thought what we have before you tonight is the workable solution for Sault Ste. Marie in a community our size. As for a policy that would require not hiring other relatives, I would say I'm not aware of any municipality in Ontario that has such a policy. We're a large employer. It would be a challenge to be able to implement a policy that was that strict.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody else on that matter? 7.4. Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, to Mr. White. This is a good, how can I say, revision. However, we take into consideration, and you don't have to answer this, people that with marriage that become married, and that there'll be an impact. You don't need to comment, but I'm sure you'll be exploring something along that line.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth. The policy does look at things arising not just by hiring, but as things may develop in the workplace. That could be relationships that develop in the workplace. That could be indirect and direct supervisory relationships that begin to occur through transfer, through promotion. So it doesn't really matter what triggers the relationship occurring. The policy does provide guidance now for dealing with it when it does occur.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so is that it for 7.4? Thank you. Any other matters in consent, council? See none, we'll do the resolution for consent and then we'll circle back to 7.8.
A motion by councillors Dufour and Nero resolved that all the items listed under date July 11, 2022, agenda item 7, consent agenda, save and accept agenda item 7.8 be approved as recommended.
All in favor? Motion carried. So that brings us to 7.8. Councillor Dufour.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, my feelings on the matter are just, I guess I would like to see a little bit more information about why just simple classroom space fits for a brand new $32 million recreation center. I'm having a little bit of a hard time with the mandate there. The other questions I have relate to kind of just this bit of irony where the city through the library is paying, about $130,000 a year to lease space from the school board for the North Branch Library. And I have an initial discomfort that the amount that ADSB is paying to lease classroom space in a rec center that maybe might be better suited to other services, whether KBK or a library, is of a commensurate amount. So I don't necessarily expect that all of council will share my feelings, but I just wanted to give my thoughts there and pull it from consent for that reason.
Okay, any other comments on that matter? So we'll call the vote on that matter. Madam Clerk, is there a resolution that or a bylaw that accompanies it that you have to read?
There's a motion and I will change the mover from Councillor Dufour. Resolved that the report of the manager of purchasing dated July 11, 2022 be received and the proposal submitted by Sault TV Pro Shop and Algoma District School Board for lease of space at the expanded Northern Community Center for a period of 5 years as required by CDES be approved. And the bylaws were going to come subsequently.
Okay, so we need a mover for that in lieu of Councillor Dufour because he was shown as the courtesy mover. Councillor Scott, all in favor? Motion carried. Councillor Dufour opposed. It passes.
9-1.
Okay. So whenever you're ready, Madam Clerk, we can move on to 831, I think.
So agenda item 8.3.1 is the transit terminal relocation. And a motion by councillors Dufour and Nero resolved that the report of the manager of purchasing dated July 11, 2022 be received, and as bids exceed the approved budget, the tender be closed with no award.
So council, do you have any questions on this report? This isn't the report that the staff report that recommends how we move forward. This is the staff report on the return of the tender. So it's the purchasing report. So do you have any questions on the purchasing report? That's the one before us. Seeing none, all in favor? So we received that. So now we move on to 832. Madam Clerk, if you can read that resolution, please, and then we'll take questions.
Agenda item 8.3.2. It's a motion by councillors Dufour and Bruni resolved that the report of the Director of Community Services dated July 11, 2022 concerning Dennis Street Terminal relocation be received and that the following be approved. 1, to not accept the low tender submission. 2, Transit Services to submit a change order to the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Fund to revise the approved $2 million project to that of a plan and design phase project, to reduce from approved $2 million city share $533,400 to $238,142 city share 26.67% or $63,512 to cover professional and design services, including open house fees to date. Number 3, prepare a revised budget estimate with idea to bring forward to the 2023 budget meeting. 4, submit a new request to ISIP this summer for the build, tendering, and contract administration service in order to expedite the process should council approve the 2023 budget request.
Okay, so Councillor Shoemaker, you were quick, put your hand up here, so I'll start with you.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. As you're aware, I sent in an amendment to this motion, which asked that staff look at the old ACR station in the Station Mall parking lot as an option to investigate during this period while we're kind of relooking at at various options for the relocation of the bus terminal. But because, as you informed me, because last year's meeting was on July 12th, this year's is on July 11th, and within the 1-year period for a reconsideration. So can't move this motion at tonight's meeting. So I intend to move it at the next meeting to look at the ACR station. But I will support the staff recommendation today because I don't think it in any way inhibits the investigation, but just letting all of council know. Consider this my notice of motion that at the next meeting, I will be asking that staff take a renewed look at the ACR station we were told a year ago, I went back and watched the meeting just earlier this weekend, that the old owners weren't willing to, AC Algoma Central Properties was not willing to look at selling the old station. But now that the mall's got a new owner, maybe there's some potential there that the new owners are willing to play ball. So that's all I've got on that. Thank you, Mr.
Yeah,
Mayor.
so for clarity for the folks that are watching at home, Councilor Shoemaker sent in a amending resolution, which is essentially accept staff's report, but then added a clause that directed staff to have discussions with the mall ownership about purchasing that piece of property. So pointing out to Councilor Shoemaker that was specifically discussed at a meeting less than a year ago. So to move that, two people from that time it was defeated 9-2. Councilor Shoemaker and Councilor Scott were the movers of it. So for that to be moved tonight, it had to be 2 of the other 9 to move it, not Councilor Shoemaker, Councilor Scott, and reconsiderations, comments, and notice of motion. But the reality is, as of tomorrow, when Councilor Shoemaker is able to bring his motion as he sees fit, so he can return it in the August meeting, he doesn't need to follow those procedural bylaws or to ask for the bylaw to be suspended. So, and I agree with his assessment. There's nothing prohibiting him from doing it in August, in giving staff this direction tonight gets them working on the other processes that they obviously are seeking our authority to work on. Will indicate, for the community at large, have had a number of discussions and meetings with the new mall ownership. Mr. Vera and I and Mr. White would all say that they've been productive. We're happy with the approach they're taking and kind of their positive engagement. So we've got a relationship established there, and we're encouraged and excited about the potential of that facility on a going forward basis. So that noted, Councilor Shoemaker is going to have a new motion for us at our August meeting. And do we have anything else or any other questions or points of discussion on this report? Oh, sorry, I apologize. The next July meeting, I apologize. Yeah, that's right. There's 2 meetings in July. Anything else on 8.3.2? Okay, so if you can cast your votes, all in favor? Carried. That brings us to 8.3.3.
Just a motion by Councilors Dufour and Nero, resolved that the report of the Director of Community Services dated July 11, 2022 be received, and that Council approve the following: the use of $625,000 in Canadian Build Funds funding to advance the project, a request for proposal for professional and contract administration services be completed, tenders for construction and splash pad playground equipment and installation issued if project is on budget, and direct staff to submit a supporting service level increase in the amount of $115,000 to the 2023 budget for ongoing operations.
Okay, Council, do you have any questions on this one? Councilor Christian.
Just a quick one to, I guess, Mr. Lamming. Has there been any discussions with the businesses within the splash pad industry, just to get a sense of what their costs are going to look like, given the state of the economy right now, so that we don't have any surprises? Has there been any just high level discussions about rising costs?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Christian, yes, that was kind of incorporated into the report, that once we were able to talk with the proponents, that we could come back if there was any changes in the pricing with respect to what's expected. We originally anticipated around $750, $725, and there was discussions at budget to pare this back down to the $625. So we'll be looking at value managing the splash pad to try to stay within the budget. But if there is any change, we will bring that forward before a tender is released.
Thank you.
Councilor Bruni.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To Mr. Lamming, I'm just reviewing the picture that you provided in the report. What size is this splash pad going to be? An approximate size?
You, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruni, it's approximately a little bit smaller than the splash pad that's at Bellevue. I'd say probably about 3/4 of the size of the one at Bellevue Park that's currently in place.
Okay, because by the picture itself, it doesn't look like it's a big splash pad. There's what, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 people. I'm just.
Through Mr. Mayor, Councillor Bruni, yeah, it's a concept type picture. So
okay, all right.
It is, but I'd suggest 25% smaller is significant. I'd suggest that's a significant deviation. That, in my opinion, is a significant deviation from the one we built. I can tell you, every time you drive by that one, there are kids using it. So, you know, in my mind, when we limited the budget on this, I didn't put up any kind of fuss, but I didn't really understand why council wanted to do that. It was obviously a great investment in the East End, and it's something that's very heavily used. And many cities of our size, I mean, we're a bit behind in this respect. It shouldn't have taken this long to get one. We've had this discussion, Councillor Christian, and certainly having two is not a significant number of splash pads in a community of our size. But it is, I think in the end, it'll be done, it'll be great. But I think there's going to be some regret that we made it the size we did. Councillor Gardy?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Mr. Mayor, sorry. On that note, you know, to Councillor Christian's inquiry, you know, we should probably anticipate that the budget is going to need to be a little larger than or more extensive than was originally anticipated. I really wanted to see this happen in the West End, and I know there are some councillors who were a bit concerned with the 750, so we went to 625. That being said, should it come back more than it has outlined, I will not be supportive of reducing it further in terms of its scope. The West End of the community deserves a splash pad, one as similar as we can to that is enjoyed by residents and children and families in the East End. So yeah, it might come back a little bit more than we anticipated, but I'm going to be encouraging quite vociferously that we okay it for the West End of the community. Thanks.
Okay, any other comments, questions on this? You have the vote up on your e-scribe. All in favor? Motion is carried. That should bring us to resolutions. Madam Clerk.
Agenda item 9.1, property standards bylaw update. This is a motion by councillors Dufour and Nero, whereas City Council adopted a new property standards bylaw in the summer of 2021 that took authority from the Municipal Act and the Ontario Building Code to ensure our local municipal enforcement officials had every power available to tackle the prevalence of derelict buildings. And whereas City Council also provided new resources to both the building and legal departments in 2021 to ensure that the new property standards bylaw could be enforced to its full effect. And whereas the past 2 years have seen a noticeable increase of absentee landlords, vacant buildings, and real estate purchases by shell corporations, which decrease the available supply of housing units during a time of significant local demand. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the legal and building departments be requested to provide an updated report regarding successes and or challenges with the new property standards bylaw. The report should include potential actions the city might take to decrease the number of repeat offenders and perpetually vacant buildings, ensuring a larger and more affordable supply of housing stock.
Okay, so Councillor Nero, just pulling this up. Councillor, sorry, you're the second next one, Councillor Dufour. Councillor Dufour, do you have any comments you wanted to make on this?
Just to say that the city's done a lot of work in the last 2 to 3 years. The bylaw, building and bylaw task force did a lot of work, as well as our legal staff put in significant time and effort in order to update this bylaw. And so I'm looking for kind of a one-year report card on how things have been going, what we can be doing better, because from my view on the ground, it's been one of those things where we've committed significant resources towards a problem that has continued to kind of morph and change in the ecosystem of other things that are going on in the world. And just looking to see if there's other things that the city might do to continue to take action against this problem, as it's having a significant effect on our neighborhoods.
Councillor Nero, did you want to add anything to that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just briefly, just that Councillor Dufour and I tried to make these two motions work together, but it seemed that they were best presented separately.
Yeah, we would agree with that. Okay, any other questions or comments on this motion? Appreciate the motion, gentlemen, and agree with what you're trying to do here. I think it's important. So all in favor? Motion is carried. That brings us to 9.2, Madam Clerk.
Which is also a motion by councillors Nero and Dufour, whereas the city's property standards bylaw was recently amended to address vacant properties under bylaw 2021-128. And whereas section 7.4 sub 1 reads that every owner of vacant land as defined within this bylaw shall ensure that the vacant land is maintained to the standards as described in part 2 of this bylaw. And whereas part 2 addresses general standards for all property and uses under section 2.05, which includes grass in a general way, specifically for vacant properties. And whereas the city's yard maintenance bylaw, being bylaw 2012-10, addresses long grass more specifically, but does not address controlling long grass as it pertains to vacant properties. And whereas in the past year, a significant number of properties have been purchased in Sault Ste. Marie by out-of-town companies, and whereas these properties are not being maintained, as it appears that these homes are being left vacant, and whereas the building department has received numerous complaints of long grass which can be attributed to these vacant properties, now therefore be it resolved that bylaw 2012-10, the yard maintenance bylaw, be referred to the building department and the legal department for review and report back to council with amendments that will address yard maintenance and specifically long grass found on properties which are left vacant. Further, be it resolved that the remedies be considered but not restricted to the possibility of significant fines, higher administrative charges, a daily cumulative charge for every day not in compliance after the date set for compliance, a process that would have a contractor tender the work sooner, that all orders to comply sent out by the building department for long grass on vacant properties also include line 7.42B from the property standards bylaw, which reads, maintain appropriate liability insurance on the vacant building in an amount no less than $2 million, greater consequences under the bylaw for repeat offenders, including properties that may be from different civic addresses, but same owners.
Okay, Councilor Nero, start with you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, based on the first motion, we can see that council amended the property standards bylaw 1 or 2 years ago. And we'll see how successful that was. But I think we took the right move in making the amendments to address the vacant properties. I think because of what's happening now with these out-of-town companies buying these properties, basically leaving them vacant, and either reselling or renting them, the yards have become just atrocious. There's just no maintenance whatsoever. There are properties that have not been touched for the entire season. So I thought the next step, obviously, would be to look at the properties, the bylaw, the yards bylaw itself, maintenance bylaw, and do the same review that we did on the property standards bylaw in addressing these vacant properties. Specifically, mostly the complaints obviously come with long grass that hasn't been cut all summer. There's debris in the yards. The houses again are vacant. There's no one around. We don't see, I understand there's property managers, but there's just nothing being done to these properties. And I think we have to address it. I think it looks bad for the community as a whole. I think it's just terrible that people have to live next door to these properties. The long grass attracts rodents. It's just terrible, terrible scene to have in the city. So we have it. I hope that we've listed a few things that we can look at the end of the bylaw, or of the motion, I should say. Not sure if they can be done, but I think at the end of the day, we have to make this bylaw work as best as it can to make it as difficult as it can for these absentee landlords. And maybe, just maybe they'll clean these properties up.
Councilor Dufour, did you want to add anything to that?
Just very quickly, Mr. Mayor, I know from our new property standards bylaw that it's given us the ability with repeatedly vacant buildings to board them as needed without notice, which allows us to really secure those buildings a lot quicker. And so from a yard maintenance standpoint, part of the question is there room for us to legally be allowed to do something similar, especially in these cases where it's literally just the city 3 times a year doing all of the yard maintenance. So again, none of this is a criticism of what staff has done so far. We're just looking to keep building on the momentum that we've created and continue to see these issues in some of our neighborhoods.
Thank you. If I can add, Mr. Mayor, I left this out, but our process right now, I think we've improved it, but these vacant yards and properties require a bylaw enforcement officer to go back there 5 and 6 times. Then it goes to our legal department. It's just a ton of time that's expended looking after these properties. And at the end of the year, nothing's happened because the process is what it is. And that's not, that's not something that we're saying is bad that staff is doing. That's the process. And, we've been told before that there are certain things legally that we have to abide by. And I get that. We just hope that we can come up with something a little better than what we have now.
Yeah, I think the message, as I understand it, is look at this and do everything you can to make sure that we are responding to this as quickly as we can, as effectively as we can, and as seriously as we can. There's, as you point out, Councilor Nero, there's a lot of staff work in maintaining that process. And there seems to be a number of these vacant homes that are owned by different companies. So the ownership group of those companies might not be, whether they're local or not is difficult to determine. You have to do some research to do that. But often when you're dealing with companies, it's also sometimes difficult to get responses as opposed to a home that's owned by an individual. But we do have mechanisms, and we can put costs on the tax bill, but there are legal processes we have to follow when we do that. But I see what you're talking about. I get the concern. It's incredibly frustrating when neighbors that don't take care of their yards, turn to us, and we have a very difficult time getting hold of the party responsible for taking care of the yard. So in those circumstances, we have to figure out what we can do that has the greatest effect within the staff parameters that we have. We've talked a number of times at this council that we don't have excess bylaw enforcement officers. And maybe that's something we have to look at doing, putting some money into. Councilor Gardy, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just have a question. This doesn't only include residential dwellings, correct? This would be more commercial as well? Good, because there's no more glaring example of neglect than the former St. Veronica school site on East Belfour between Wilding and Gooley Avenue. People have been putting up with it for years, owner after owner. I don't know who the current owner is. I haven't been by there for probably a week, but it is unsafe. It is accessible, and the neighbors are very, very concerned. And I commend Mr. Nero for all his work along with Councilor Dufour over the course of the last term of council to improve these things. Thank you.
You want to speak for a third time on this, Councilor Nero?
If you allow me to, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to thank you for the discussion we had about this. And I want to thank Mr. White for meeting with both of us on this. But in closing, I think the opening here is what we really need to look at is the repetition of the same owners doing the same thing all the time. And the same owner owning multiple vacant properties. There has to be a way that we don't have to go through the process time and time again with the same owner.
So look, we've had discussions on this, and thank you for your work on it. And when you raised it with me, I indicated to you it's something that we were already internally sensitive to and talking about trying to sort out how to deal with, because we also get, obviously, residents reach out to the city directly about these concerns. So staff is already working on it. I can tell you that. So this motion is great, and I think it gives a lot of clarity to staff, but staff is charged with it and looking at it and trying to figure out how to deal with these issues.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments on it? All in favor? Motion is carried.
And under agenda item 9.3, a motion by councillors Hilsinger and Dufour, whereas we know the relative lack of support for mental health and addiction related issues takes a huge toll on some of our most vulnerable residents. And whereas we can see from our own experience that these realities negatively impact our community, including our downtown, our local businesses, and our public places. And whereas Ontario's big city mayors have recently requested that the Ontario government agree to an emergency meeting with them to discuss chronic homelessness, mental health, safety, and addictions. And whereas we in the Sioux know only too well that these are challenges we face just as much in cities of our size. And whereas we want to be absolutely certain, we express our deep concern on behalf of many people who need this help and to ensure the province develops solutions meant for all cities in Ontario. And whereas the Sioux and other cities of our size need to be a part of those discussions for the sake of our vulnerable residents and their families, our businesses, and the health of our community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we ask to be included in the emergency discussions with the big city mayors or ask for our own meeting, and that Mayor Provenzano will immediately write a letter with the request.
Okay, so I'm going to start with you, Councillor Hilsinger, since you wrote this motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Almost all cities, if not all cities, and it doesn't matter of their size, are really challenged with helping our residents who are suffering from homelessness and mental health and addictions. And there can't be a one size fits all solution. There needs to be a strategy, and the provincial government needs to include communities of all sizes in the conversations that lead to action, that are going to put resources in place to help all cities, including ours, to resolve these situations and help these folks. It's as simple as that, and we want to seat at that table.
Thank you, Councillor. Do we have anything to add, Councillor Dufour?
Just very quick, Mr. Mayor, a lot of the resources that do get announced at the federal and provincial level do tend to flow towards some of those bigger political entities. And I think the more that we can do to be in the room and be at the table, the better chance Sault Ste. Marie has of reversing what I feel is a historical inequity in a lot of this funding, to really reverse course and get our fair share.
So I'm happy to continue to work on this. I agree with both of you. It certainly is an issue that is prevalent regardless of the city size. But I don't believe that we receive the same level of supports as larger cities. And I think we can look at the province's own information that it's developed and released through reports over the last couple of years that clearly demonstrate that the problems and challenges we're facing are more acute in Northern Ontario. And there's only, Sudbury certainly belongs to the big cities group because they're over 100,000, but there are more cities than not in Northern Ontario that are less than 100,000. And we have no less of a problem, often more substantial ones. So happy to continue to work on this and do what we can to try and communicate the severity of the problem and the need for assistance. And this relates to the next motion, which from my perspective is disturbing, but I'll save my comments for that motion. So any other comments on 9.3? All in favor? Carried. So we'll move to 9.4, Madam Clerk.
Agenda item 9.4 was added by addendum. It's a motion by councillors Dufour and Hilsinger, whereas the community of Sault Ste. Marie has been suffering the well-documented effects of the mental health and addictions crisis. And whereas these effects have been exacerbated in Sault Ste. Marie due to the lack of equivalent health services in our community compared to many other northern communities. And whereas on June 23, 2022, Sioux Area Hospital announced to community partner agencies that the concurrent disorders intensive day treatment pilot program would be paused due to a lack of funding. And whereas since November 2020, Sioux Area Hospital has provided concurrent disorders intensive day treatment to fill significant service gaps by providing the right level of care close to home. And whereas over 110 individuals have participated in this intensive treatment service, and approximately 40% of graduates have found employment or returned to previous work or school. Now, therefore, be it resolved that City Council endorse Mayor Provenzano writing a letter of support to Ontario Health North and Ontario Health, emphasizing the critical need for dedicated base funding for this essential programming to ensure ongoing access to specialized mental health and addictions care for those with complex addictions and mental health needs in our community who need it most.
Councillor Dufour, we'll start with you. Maybe you can give council and the community the context on this, and then I'll offer my thoughts.
Certainly, I'd be happy to, Mr. Mayor. I received information about this issue in my capacity as the chairperson of the Social Services Administration Board. I was notified on June 23rd of this decision, but I was also notified a week ago when Miss Lisa Case of Sault Area Hospital began in response to what is really an outcry from community agencies to send out further information on what community agencies could do to communicate their thoughts and feelings on the matter. And so what Lisa did is she put together kind of a letter of support that folks could adjust and amend as they saw fit. I wrote one in my capacity as the chairperson of Social Services, addressing it with that hat on, and I immediately thought that Sault Ste. Marie City Council would also probably appreciate the opportunity to have you, Mr. Mayor, write with our thoughts and our support for this critical program. I can't think of any other issue that's played a bigger, more significant role in my time on City Council or as DSAB chair. To me, this is 2 steps in the wrong direction. I believe our community is sorely lacking from these services, and to hear that we're losing the small amount of services that we have is wildly distressing. We can't be going in this direction and be successful as a city. So,
thank you, Councillor Dufour. Councillor, do you have anything to add?
No, Councillor Dufour explained it well. Thank you.
Thank you. So look, Council, I have a few things to say about this. Firstly, I want to start by recognizing the really substantial work that our care agencies and our healthcare agencies are doing. And I want to recognize Sault Hospital for their efforts. And we have other service providers in our community that on a day-to-day basis are working hard to try and help people. In 2017, the then CEO of the hospital was here and indicated that we needed over $5 million more of operating funding in 2017 and about 11 million in capital funding. 5 years later, on the eve of an election, we get a capital funding announcement, but the increase in operating funding over that time was nominal. And to lose operating funding for mental health and addictions is alarming. And in my mind, we cannot be vocal enough and we cannot be aggressive enough to make the point that we are being overlooked. And I will say it very pointedly. The provincial government is failing our community. I have been saying this for years. And when I say it, I might be accused of being partisan, which I'm not. I haven't carried a card for a really long time, and I haven't participated in partisan politics for a really long time. I was always saying it from a very genuine place, a place of concern, because I saw the problem weekly getting worse. And I see it continuing to get worse. As a mayor, I heard a lot about the rise in nonviolent crime. And as a mayor, I heard a lot about the rise in violent crime. And I could assure you we've had a lot of discussions about this at the police services. And I could assure you the police services would indicate to you that the increase in violent crime in our community relates to the drug trade. And the increase in nonviolent crime in our community relates to substance use. People that really need help and need healthcare. Many people who in the end have addictions and are not criminals. But we do not have the resources in this community to help people to the degree that we need. We have been saying it for years. I don't know how many resolutions we've passed. I don't know how many meetings we've had. I don't know how much effort we've made, but it has been substantial. but we have not got there. So I would say to all of you who are running again, and all of you who are elected, and all of you who are out there in the community that want to run and be elected, this is the singular most important thing that has to be addressed in this community. Our community, in almost every other respect, is doing very well. And our community, in almost every other respect, is positioned for a very bright future. But we all have to be speaking with the same voice, and we all have to be pointed about it. And we all can't be discouraged or bothered if people, discourage us from saying these things, accuse us of being negative, or maybe not being team players. Our team is the city of Sault Ste. Marie. That is our team. And everything we do should be to further the health and welfare of the city of Sault Ste. Marie. And I will take responsibility for myself and my actions, and I have not been able to convince the provincial government to do the right thing here. And I will own that. I will own my part in that. But we have to continue to try, because we are being failed by the provincial government. And funding needs to come for this. And the fact that we might lose mental health and addiction services in our community is a shame. So I want to encourage all of you to speak up about it. I want to encourage you to be more pointed about it. I want to encourage you to be clear about it. We need more resources. And we have a tremendous number of people that are talented and caring and giving and working super hard every day to improve our services here in the community, but they can't do it. And they can't provide those services without the financial support they need to adequately provide those services. And if we don't do these things, the problem will get worse. And if we don't do these things, costs will go up in other areas, specifically policing. And policing isn't the answer to this. It's not going to solve it. But the more money we direct there is at the expense of actually getting to the root of the issue. And these are big issues, but we can come to it and we can solve it. But we can't do it ourselves as a municipality. All of you, each one of you needs to speak up. And everybody in the community that's concerned about this, you need to speak up. We cannot lose more services here in Sault Ste. Marie. Anybody else? Councillor Hollingsworth?
Thank you. If I may say, you always speak very well, and well done. I just want to say that AMO, as you know, is coming up, and I know that Councillor Dufour is very active, as we just talked about earlier, and also very active being chair of social services. Like a number of us are going to be at AMO, and I'm assuming that you have a delegation priority set up, same as Phenom. And so we should work together, because I find that when you're at this AMO conference and you have a delegation, you're at the table with the ministers and they do listen. So let's work together and bring it home from different angles. So let's get that delegation at the table and go for it. Thank you.
Councillor Gardy.
Real quick, and I respect immensely what Councillor Hollingsworth just said, but they say that they've been listening, the province and the feds, for years on this issue. We need action and we need dollars. So they'll sit in front of us and listen, or they'll return a letter politely. We need funds. That's what we need from both levels of government. Thanks.
Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This motion is actually appropriate in the sense at a federal level as well, because I think all the premiers right now are pushing to get an increase from 22% to 35% of the transfer. So I think reaching out to our provincial representatives and our federal representatives, and we do, like Councillor Gardy said, we need to push for money. And like you said, Mr. Mayor, we need to be very vocal about this as a team. This is impacting everybody. So I think this is a very appropriate timing for the motion before us. So I'm happy to hear it and I'm happy to support it. I think we really need to be noisy about this.
Any other comments? Okay, all in favor? Motion's carried.
That will bring us to agenda item 12, bylaws. A motion by Councillors Dufour and Bruni resolved that all bylaws under item 12 of the agenda under date July 11, 2022 be approved.
All in favor? Carried.
And a motion by councillors Dufour and Nero resolved that this council now adjourn.
All in favor? Carried. Yeah, I was confusing.
Okay.